Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Welcome to Guylight, a podcast about vampires. Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
Oh, yeah, everything's great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, what a time in the world. It's all great.
Yeah, it's fine. Considering when people are listening to this, I don't know what's going to be
Who
happening.
the hell knows?
It's going to be like 3 weeks after we recorded this.
It'll definitely be good, though. That's the only thing we know for sure.
Will it, Adam?
Things will be good.
Will our voices, will our tinny voices be coming out of a dusty radio in like a wasteland?
Right. Will it immediately...
An apocalyptic wasteland.
Will it be Fallout 3 by 3 weeks from now?
Yeah.
Totally possible.
Will the aliens touch down and listen and be like, these fuckers love Twilight? And that'll be it. That'll be our legacy.
No, they're going to touch down and be like, I knew there was a fucking Twilight podcast. You liars.
Yeah.
You liars.
We're the only Twilight podcast, right?
We have to be. Just having watched 3 of the movies now, I can tell you right now, if there's another Twilight podcast, why? Why?
Well, I'm sure there was one when it came out.
Yeah, for sure.
Were podcasts popular in the what is this, 2010?
Yeah, the 2010s. No idea. Literally no idea.
Some fucking smartass must have had our idea too.
There was a jabberer out there doing this. There's no doubt.
Yeah, they should be ignored.
Yeah, definitely ignored.
Because they are nothing to us.
They should be ripped to shreds by a werewolf. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the only thing you can do.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the werewolves real quick.
I baited your ass.
Werewolves, right?
I baited your ass so good.
Yeah. Well, they aren't werewolves. They're wolves.
They're shapeshifters.
They're wolves.
They're shapeshifters.
Yeah, there's another word for that, right?
Well, they literally say the word shapeshifter in their story time around the camp meeting. That's a story time.
Yeah, they also say werewolves a lot.
Do they say werewolves?
I think people call them werewolves and they don't correct them. So maybe it is sort of like where they're like, we've learned over time, like, just let them call us werewolves.
Right. It's just easier if we don't correct them.
Yeah, but there's another word for it. It's their animality is what's going on from their Mortal Kombat animalities.
Yes, which means they could also have the babality that we haven't seen yet.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Well, the babality is just Jacob. He's a babe.
He's a living babality.
Have we learned why they don't? This is probably I'm skipping way ahead.
You're careening us right off the train, like immediately.
We haven't introduced ourselves.
No, this is like an Uncharted episode already.
Yeah.
You know?
What I wanted to say about the werewolves though is, if I were friends with werewolves, or enemies. If I was just in the presence of them, and they weren't killing me, I would never stop accidentally casually petting them. I would forget.
In wolf form, you mean?
Yeah, in both forms. No, in wolf form.
Yeah.
It would be so hard to just they got those little snoots, and I wanna like scritch them.
Okay.
And boop it and scratch the little ears.
It's funny that and
it would just be so hard to not do that. I would keep forgetting.
It would be hard not to treat them as pets. So that is one of the things I wrote down is I wrote down the line "I still love you." when I wrote that down when Jacob went away mournfully having seen a kiss, but he was in dog or wolf form, and I was like,
yeah,
this whole thing gets way better if you just write down their inner monologue in dog language.
Yeah,
this series
for sure
dramatically improves.
They're also probably shitting. There's a part where they're just sitting around, when they're doing the werewolf training, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
The werewolves, they're just hanging out with the wolves all day in the woods, and there's no way they're just not like shitting.
No,
right?
they're shitting
When
soccer
they have
balls.
To shit.
Yeah, they got big old shits going. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I guess the vampires are also. Do vampires shit?
It's unclear.
They shit blood.
They don't
right?
sleep.
They shit like it's like diarrhea.
It's getting into a whole sort of creepy territory because why do they need to drink blood? Like physiologically, why do they need to?
Why do we need to drink water?
Right, but because we are living beings, and I think that the movie concedes that the vampires are not.
Right.
They're like viruses. They're like in that they're not alive.
Right.
Right?
I guess that's true.
Sure. You have to accept that's the stupidest fucking thing about this. It's like, oh, I see.
If you're if you believe what Jacob's group believes,
what Team Jacob believes, right?
Yeah,
right. It does. I promise you, I'm going to bring up the dog voice more than once in this podcast.
Good.
Yeah, because it dramatically improves the whole movie. I would argue we should be scrapping Bella's poetic narration the 4 times it happens in every movie and just put dog voice in instead. It could do anything. You can say anything you want. Anything you want.
100%.
Yeah.
Welcome to Guylight.
Fuck, I forgot we hadn't even done that yet. Yeah, welcome to Guylight.
I'm one of your hosts.
Yeah, he is. He's a handsome one, too. He is David Bell, and I'm your other host.
Adam Ganzer.
Woof! We're doing it.
Yeah!
Yeah! This podcast
We're up to...
exists.
What?
This podcast exists.
It definitely exists. There's no denying it at this point.
Yeah.
We are recording this on the weekend, right before... The Friday before the first episode drops.
Okay, great.
I assume we'll announce it, this is definitely happening on Monday.
Okay. I would argue we never acknowledged that it happened.
Don't even tweet it out.
No, we should tweet that this is a thing that doesn't exist, like you're not seeing it. You know what I mean? Just maintain the whole time.
Gaslighting them.
Yeah, it just never happened. We're going to gaslight them. This didn't exist.
We were never here.
Yeah. That's my argument.
All right, that's fair. Yeah. We're up to Twilight Eclipse.
Yeah, we are. We really are.
Which is the one with the good director.
Yeah. You can see that.
I'm not saying it's good directed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a well-directed film.
Yeah.
I just know that the director of this movie went on to do things that people consider to be good.
Yeah, I mean, at some point we'll talk about craft. Probably 3 hours from now, and I'll have some good comments about. Do you think our episodes are just going to keep getting longer? I have no fucking idea. I'm not ruling out a 20-minute episode. I'm not ruling it out.
Yeah, neither am I. Or even like a 50-minute one. I don't know. It depends.
I'm not planning it.
Yeah.
My thing is...
I don't know if this will be the episode.
I don't know if either. My thing is, as soon as you and I start being boring, the episode will be over. That's
right.
As soon as you bore me and I don't want to talk about this anymore, that'll be the end of it.
Boring. That's the problem.
You're like Jacob's warm sun heart. It's just constantly hot.
Yeah.
I'm drawn to it.
Oh, yeah. He's a little furnace.
Oh, yeah. He's
got that furnace chest. You got to cuddle
I got to snuggle up to your joke warmth every day, Dave. Yeah. What can I do?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. This movie has an absurd amount of reasons for Jacob to be touching Bella.
This movie has an absurd amount of reasons in general.
Yes, it does.
I don't understand what happened.
Agreed.
Here's my biggest note.
Great.
Or my biggest praise is that I'm happy to see that, much like the others, and we had talked about this, I love that this is still just relationship junk.
I wish it was more of that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. They keep trying to put a plot, like a separate plot, and it's like, no, I don't give a shit. The whole movie should be in that tent.
How could we possibly give a shit? All right. I don't want to get into Guylight. But we couldn't possibly give a shit, though, because we've never met the villain who dies. Spoilers. We never met her. Okay, we saw her face. We didn't get to know her.
Look, we all fell in love with James in the first movie.
That's right.
And so we know where she's coming from.
Who the hell knew?
Scumbag James, the man who started all of this.
Yeah.
apparently the entire series is from a fight at a baseball game.
That's what it looks like. It looks like James sort of slithered his way into one of the most cosmic conflicts of all time, from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, so in terms of highlight...
Yeah.
This movie is about... It's what at least I said was going to happen, but way earlier, which is that it's about the vampires and werewolves teaming up.
Yes, as they must.
In order to fight off a vampire threat that clearly is a sign of something bigger, of what's his name?
Martin Sheen? Or
Martin Sheen.
Michael Sheen?
Michael Sheen. Michael Sheen's like clearly behind this to an extent, and they already know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about so Bella and Edward are fighting about marriage.
Yeah, they are.
He's like, marry me, and she's like, turn me into a vampire first.
Right. It's a real standoff. They're at a real impasse negotiations wise.
Right. And like Bella is like, a marriage, that's a big deal. That's forever.
Right.
No, just turn me into a vampire.
Exactly.
It's like, what the fuck is the conflict?
Do this irreversibly eternal action to me that will change everything about my life, but don't you dare ask me to marry you, because that's a big commitment. It was like, what? What the fuck? This is not a problem. These are the same thing.
No, it's not a problem.
These are the same thing. They're the same thing. They're literally the same. It's like, hey, it'd be like if you just took out the word "make me a vampire" and said "marry me." That's what the conflict is. Marry me, not until you marry me. Like that's the fucking conflict.
Yeah, that's the conflict.
It's so good.
It's so weird. And then she's DTF.
Yeah.
And Edward's like, no, not until we're married.
Yeah.
Because Edward is 109 years old, so he's a bit of a traditionalist.
I didn't hate that. Did you hate that?
Define hate.
Hate is the absence of love, Dave. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I didn't hate the concept that he's a traditionalist and he's old.
It changes how I feel about him a lot. It changes a lot how I feel about him.
Yeah, I hated the conflict of it.
Sure. Because
I thought it was dumb, and I think it's dumb that Edward would, after 109 years, still have that.
I agree.
Like,
yeah.
It's like there's...
Especially if his soul is damned. Like, it's like, okay, if he thinks he's damned for all eternity, like, if that's what he thinks, he's like, but I have to maintain the morality of not sleeping with a person, even though I know that's old-fashioned, and there's, like, my body wants me to. There's no good reason for me not to do it.
There's a factor I think we aren't talking about because I don't know enough about it.
Sure.
But that the writer of Twilight, I heard, is Mormon or
that
has ties to Mormonism.
Perfect sense.
Yeah. So there's these movies, and I assume the books even more, have this weird like religious moral undertones, but it's like the cake and eat it too situation where they also clearly wanted vampire eroticism. So like the idea that he says to Bella, like, I'm doing it for your soul. So I want to do one thing right. And it's like, yeah, but you're turning her into a vampire. So like I don't think when they're tallying things up at the pearly gates, I don't think this will help.
Oh, dude, if right
in his mind,
if this is coming from a Mormon point of view, if that's true, I don't know. I never looked into it until you mentioned that, and it's like, oh, okay. If that's true,
you've definitely gotten those vibes though. Where you're like, there's some sort of religious work.
Yeah,
here.
Because they keep bringing up the soul idea. It's like, why would you bring that up? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, we're not going to have God in this. We're not going to have Jesus in it. That's not happening.
Right, and like no judgment.
Right, judgment
towards
day.
The religious stuff.
Sure,
it's more of a tonal problem. It's
Agreed.
That like if you made a religious movie, you can't. You kind of can't also make a vampire erotic movie.
Not unless they're unless they're evil. Like unless they're overtly evil.
Right. It feels like they're like it's they're like struggling with what the moral narrative is.
Like, to me, it looks like this is how it reads to me now. Thinking about this, it reads like the artist wanted to say one thing, and then her beliefs told her to say another thing, and she tried to get them both to work together in this work, and picked the wrong kind of thing to make to do that.
Right.
Like, it's a romance novel. It's not trying to not be a romance. Well, okay, it is trying not to be a romance novel, but it's failing at that. It's like...
It's really failing.
Yeah, it's clearly like it would be a Harlequin romance novel if it was written by a different person.
Right.
It's not more sophisticated at all than that. So, like, you know, she's trying to kind of make it, like, clean, but then also add a bunch of spiritually fraught ideas and sort of whitewash over the ramifications of it, but then bring them up. It's like, you can't have all these things, man. That doesn't work.
Yeah. I am now reading that, yes, it is Mormon influences. There's several reviews that are like, there's so many Mormon beliefs, like, woven into this.
Yes.
And whether or not the writer, what's her name? Stephanie Meyer?
Yeah, Stephanie Meyer.
Whether or not she meant to, it's like, it's clearly there. So maybe it is just like subconscious.
Yeah, but okay. So, like, speaking as a person who's had a long-standing religious faith, when you're negotiating writing something, dealing with that, like, you're more conscious about these kinds of problems, not less.
I would argue that she is not a good writer.
I mean, I think that's where we're getting to here.
Yeah. And I think I probably already mentioned Neil Breen, but Neil Breen,
every day.
His movies are, it's just, he's such an easy example of all the bad writing things you can do, just kind of like really exaggerated, like amplified. And one is that he can't get past clearly preaching his own beliefs in his work,
yes.
even if it doesn't make sense.
Correct.
I think it's that where it's just, it keeps coming in a little bit. Like, that's one of those signs that, like, not necessarily bad writing, but your writing needs work, is when you keep coming back to, like, this stuff. You can't leave yourself. So you're like, oh yeah, I mean, of course Edward wants to wait till marriage. Like, that's, you know, that's a thing.
Right.
And it's like, not really, not with vampires, right?
The problem is that definitely not. There's no reason for that to be a decision at all. From a vampire, absolutely no reason. So, I mean, I want to take Edward and put him on a shelf and talk about him a little later, because he got more interesting in this movie to me.
Yeah, he can be on that shelf.
Yeah, we're going to put him like an elf on the shelf, and we're going to look at him a couple of times before Christmas, my dude.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
Yeah, we are. So, like, again, this is my philosophy on this. I can't say this is the way everyone should do it. But, like, my philosophy is, if your worldview is interesting and if it's compelling, then when you write, and you really believe the worldview, then when you write, you should be able to persuasively depict things about that worldview in a world that you create. And I don't mean that, like, she needs to, like, get into all the different, like, orthodoxies of Mormonism. I mean that if the way that she views the world is compelling, then she should be able to frame a story in a way that makes it seem compelling. People should be like, oh, that's an interesting take on things.
That isn't necessarily about that thing either.
Right. It should just inform it.
You can make an allegory.
Right.
You can make something,
It should inform it. Like, for instance, I think a good counterexample is a movie like Fight Club, right? Would you agree Fight Club is a good movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too.
I think it's a movie that obviously it's got a lot of annoying attention since.
Yes.
But I think the movie itself on its own was very good.
I agree.
It's David Fincher. I like the book too. The book was pretty good.
Yeah, and the book is, by the way, somewhat preachy about its worldview.
Uh-huh.
Like, and I think that's an example of a person who has a very strong worldview and rendered it in a way that was compelling for good and for bad reasons.
Yeah,
you know?
And there's an interesting debate about whether or not Fight Club is about toxic masculinity and the cultism around that. And, like, I know the author has kind of said things going both ways. So I don't know. There's a lot there.
It's definitely also just possible the guy has a toxic masculine point of view and is aware of it, but also can't get rid of it. You know what I mean? Like he could have both. He could have the Stephenie Meyer problem in a different way.
Right. It's having read his other novels, it's hard to say, but this isn't a Fight Club podcast.
No, it's not.
So I know what you're saying.
It's not, and right, we don't want to get into all the weeds on it, and I'm not here to advocate that his worldview is the right worldview at all. I'm just saying that...
Sure.
I'm just saying that's an example of a person who has a very strong way about the world, thinks this is what he thinks the world is and how it works, and he rendered a story from that is a pretty good articulation of it, and it's persuasive.
Right.
You know, there's a seduction to it. Now, you know, you can also argue with it, and fine. And people should argue with Twilight if they don't agree with it. Fine. But Twilight is not a well-rendered worldview, is my argument.
No, it's very obvious.
Yes, and clumsy.
To the point that people are like, I don't even know if the author knows that she's doing this.
Well, how could she...
Like, it's very transparent, though.
The abstinence thing is... If the abstinence thing felt like it was coming from a consistent character... Mm-hmm. Then I would be like, okay, I don't mind that there's an abstinent character. People are abstinent. It's not like nobody's doing it.
Yeah, these characters are not consistent. That's definitely a thing.
No, their relationships to each other are not consistent between movies.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, in this movie, it seemed like Bella and Alice were fighting to start. And it was like, why? Why are they fighting? What happened between those two?
Everybody shat on Alice's party idea.
Yeah, what was wrong with the party?
And it really upset me. But she's going to get back at Bella by fucking her dad.
Right. What the fuck was that? I saw that too.
That's my new favorite relationship.
There was a couple
because
good
here's
ones.
the thing.
Yeah.
How old is Alice in really not I'm 17. Like how old is she in fucking Vampire?
We don't.
Is she 200?
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
I love that they were showing some backstories.
Me too. I have opinions on
even
that.
though some of them didn't make sense. What's his name? The guy who's apparently been a vampire since the Civil War.
Yes.
They treated him like he was like a new vampire when we first met him.
That's correct. And yet he was quote unquote new, but he's older than fucking Edward is.
Yeah, he's yeah.
It might be.
Did they mention what side of the Civil War he fought on? Jasper.
Confederate, right? He said Confederate.
Really?
Yeah, he was from Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he
that's one of the things. They never address racist vampires. Like Edward probably is kind of racist, right?
I mean, if
he's 109,
unless I don't know how he could be abstinent and not racist. Like it'd be
maybe it doesn't matter because vampires just want to eat people at that point.
The abstinent he can't if he's holding on to some of his old worldviews and not others. It's like, well, why did he make that choice? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, he's going to be like, Bella, I want to wait until we get married. Also, you can't vote. You're no voting for you, Bella.
I've always thought of you as property. I hope you agree to that.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know how old Alice is, but if she gets all up in Bella's dad, that's less creepy than Bella and Edward, technically. The dad looks like a creep because she's younger looking, but she's like got to be like 200, so he's actually more her age.
I mean, the age difference at that point is pretty massive still, man. Like, it's probably more. There's actually a bigger age difference.
Yeah, but he is an adult.
Right.
He has reached,
I get it.
His brain is mature.
I get it. And I'm not. I just want to. I also want to put on the shelf the constant like Edward is sexually harassing a minor because like it's like yeah, man, I get it, but also like
it's hard to get around.
I know that, but this.
That said,
but he's abstinent. That really changes.
Jacob lost a lot of points.
Oh, he was.
Also, Edward's saving for marriage might be another weird pervert thing.
Okay, wait. Okay, let's put this in Twilight. I want to talk about it.
Okay.
It deserves...
Let's talk about the plot. We haven't talked about the plot
Not yet. We haven't even tried, Dave.
We are in the section about that.
In theory, yeah. Well, the last thing we said that was plot-related was the argument that this movie's about, which is marry me or vampire me, is ridiculous.
Right.
That's ridiculous. I rejected it immediately. I was like, that's stupid.
So we've gotten into the first 5 minutes of the movie. They're reading poetry in a field because they're in love. They went to the George Lucas school of showing people in love.
So can I brief aside, Dave? I know I'm sorry, but brief aside, Dave. Does poetry do it for people? Does poetry do it?
It gets me rock hard. No, it really doesn't.
Right. So this is my theory. This is why poetry is so like connected to romance. it's as a romantic activity. Like, I understand writing poetry for romantic reasons. Reading it is really just an act of temptation to me.
In fairness, she's doing homework, I believe.
That's fine, but like the whole point of
Which
it
is
has to be
kind of funny,
right? That's a little right
because she's like minutes from graduation,
right?
And she's like, I have to read this poetry
right
before I graduate, and it's like, you really do? What kind of shitty high school is this?
Yeah. Also, Edward does what every single human male would do when being forced to listen to poetry from their high school girlfriend, and that is he tries to smooch her out of it. Like, let me get you out of this poetry by way of smooching. Can I get that done, please?
Yes.
That's why poetry works in romance scenes, because it bores everyone enough that they have to make out to get over it. We got to get past this.
It's the Netflix and chill of olden years. It's the let's put something on.
It really is.
That we don't have to pay attention to.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Just keep saying words until our lips fall on each other, and then we can move on.
Right.
Yeah.
So Bella's going to graduate. We do the obligatory high school stuff, which at this point it felt like it was barely in the movie.
Not enough. Nowhere near enough.
Yeah. There's
two scenes
party
total with the high schoolers, and they're both about the speech, right?
Yeah. And Alice senses something, and that kind of sets it off where they're like, there's vampires after Bella again. And basically the B story is that we keep cutting to these vampires in Seattle, and they're creating new vampires, which are apparently newborn vampires are more dangerous than old vampires.
Yeah, it's rattlesnake rules. We're going full into rattlesnake rules.
Okay.
Like, baby rattlesnakes are more dangerous than regular rattlesnakes because they don't know how much venom to use.
Right, and apparently Jasper is a newborn expert.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure. Aren't they all newborn experts?
See, Jasper, in theory, right, because they've been one, agreed.
Yeah.
But Jasper has been like the equivalent of a CIA agent for vampires.
He trained like child soldier vampires.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Right. So maybe CIA is not the right, or maybe it is the right term.
Maybe it is.
Yeah. He's been doing evil shit even on a vampire scale.
Right.
Yeah, which adds up. He's felt that way the whole time.
Yeah.
Also, just brief aside, again, did you notice that Dad got on Team Jacob between movies?
Oh, I thought he always was on Team Jacob.
I think he was...
Because he's friends with Jacob's dad, so he kept being like, what about that Jacob boy? He seems to like you.
He did say that, you're right.
In this one, he says to her, like, yeah, you can hang out with Edward, but you gotta throw a few in Jacob as well.
Right.
Like, that's his compromise. Like, you can hang out with Edward, but you have to hang out with Jacob because he wants her to be with Jacob. And so there's the conflict, because if you remember the last film, they ended in not great terms.
Right. He ungrounds her, by the way, so that she can hang out with Jacob. Like,
this should probably be reserved for Guylight, but everything's chaos. I have a question at this point.
Sure.
Wasn't the plot of the previous movie that the Cullens had to move because everybody was on to them?
That was a thing. Yes.
They were like, they can tell you're not aging. In this movie, they're just back in the town of Forks.
Yeah, there was a few things they just sort of cast aside in this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
they're just here again. They're just like, yeah, we're back.
Yeah, that was a thing. And also, again, Jasper's backstory was discarded. And the friendship with Alice got sour for no reason. And the relationship with Rosalind, the other vampire, who, side note, I think is the person who should have been the villain of this series, she
was the one with the super dark backstory, right?
Yes, and also it makes more sense for the villain of this series to be in the family instead of some other
I mean,
thing.
that's more compelling, for sure.
Right.
I don't think the series is that level of challenging.
That's not even that challenge. I mean, like, that didn't take me 10 minutes to think up, dude.
Right, and I still maintain I don't think this is that level of challenge.
Okay, I don't want to be an arrogant prick, but I just, okay.
No, I agree. It's not that challenging what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think this is real kids' gloves, this movie. I think this movie is meant for I don't know.
12,
I guess
12-year-olds,
tweens.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if they knew who they were making it for.
This one was the first one where I started to feel like the question of like, what's this really about, or who's it for, more profoundly than I felt at the other. Like, it felt a little aimless. This one felt more aimless.
I think it's like tweens and weird perverts like us.
I'm not signing the dotted line agreeing to being a weird pervert, but fair enough. Dave.
Okay.
I'm not doing that. Like I said, this doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Just briefly again, they walk in, like, so they also ostensibly are investigating these murders that show up every single movie, right? Like the movies.
Yeah, every movie starts with, oh, what are these murders?
Right. So and
it's like, I bet they're vampires because they've been this whole time.
Right. So, and they also always remain unsolved, and people just forget, I guess, in this town.
Yes.
So, in order to get some more information about that, we had to drive right past, or not drive past, but like dolly past a sign that said Forks Police Department, and that's when I remembered this town's name is Forks.
Forks.
I just can't get past it, Dave.
Town of Forks.
Every time they have to write the word forks on an official anything, it's like, whoa, this is horrible. Forks?
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah, you forget just how bad this is until they remind you that the town's named Forks.
Shove forks in your face. My God.
Yep.
I couldn't believe it. It's
man, it's something.
It's definitely something.
I feel like we skipped over the part where Edward disables Bella's truck. Because he doesn't want her seeing Jacob.
And is working with Alice, incidentally. Like, Alice tells him stuff that he uses.
She's like, it's fucked up.
Oh, so maybe that's why they're fighting. I guess that makes sense. That's why they're fighting.
That does make sense. He's basically using his vampire powers to stop Bella from seeing Jacob, even though her dad wants her to see Jacob. And then they're like, we want to have this party, and then I think she graduates. At some point, they do a brief aside where Edward's like, let's go to Florida.
Yeah.
And they go to Florida, and Edward presumably spends...
Wait, I'm sorry. Yes, that happens, but more important than that is that he fucking broadsides her dad with that information.
Oh, it's gaslighting. Right. He broadsides her, doesn't he?
No.
He turns in front of her dad, and he's like, by the way, we bought you tickets to Florida.
Right.
And she can't say no because he wants her out of town.
No,
she can't say no in front of her dad, right?
No, it's not that. She has to say yes because she's going to turn into a vampire before she sees her mother again, which means she may never see her mother again.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah, totally. Great. But okay. So he announces, "Hey, man, we could use those plane tickets," in front of her dad, right? And she's like, "Oh yeah, I guess we can go to Jacksonville." And then she says, "But only on the condition that you take the other plane tickets." So they bought two, and Edward, has the audacity to pretend to be put upon by that. It's like, who the fuck else is going to go on that trip? It was only you.
Maybe the dad.
No fucking way.
They kind of shit on the dad. There's a part where she comes home and he's like, well, you're late for dinner. And she's like, I'm hanging out with Jacob. And then Edward shows up and he's like, I smell something. And then they hard cut to them at the Cullens talking about it with Bella. And it's like, wasn't she about to have dinner with her dad?
Yeah. No.
Like, she just bailed on her dad.
Yeah. He is having a whole sad boy movie to himself. Yeah. Like his movie is just like the worst parts of Kramer versus Kramer. Like, right,
but then if Alice and him hook up, then there'll be a thing, and like he can be part of the family.
I'm gonna tell you right now, he's gonna invite her over to his lair, right? Like, so he's probably got a separate house. Let's be honest, because like
the dad,
yeah, he has to. This was like, how's he managing all this horse shit and not getting involved? You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
This is what I mean. Everybody's like, how many people have broken into that house? 7? 10?
A lot of people.
Right.
People regularly break into that house.
So here's my theory on that. So like, my theory is the dad he's actually a good cop, not a shit, not the worst cop in the world, which he'd have to be now. My theory is he's a good cop, and he's like, I'm going to let this play out. My teenage daughter's got a lot of visitors. I don't want to get involved. So like,
she's dealing with vampires,
right,
werewolves.
Obviously, they're vampires. Look at their fucking eyes. So like, instead, I have a little cottage. It's where I sleep. She doesn't know about it. You know what I mean? I just like, this is where I go.
That's where he goes to unwind.
Yeah, I go for some Chuck time. You know, I get a little.
He goes up in the cottage. He's hanging out, and next thing he knows, his daughter's pitching a tent near his cottage, and he's like, "God damn it, they're here now too."
Yep. That's what he's doing. He's
hanging out with those shirtless boys.
He is. Yeah, they're shirtless everywhere and forever.
Why?
Wait.
Don't they have shirts on?
Dave, no, I can't yet. Wait.
Okay.
I can't. I know that's the right question, but hold on. So Chuck is spending his days investing in real estate. That's my theory. Just buying real estate around Forks, which can't possibly cost any money. So when Alice finally does when Alice finally does hook up with him, which by the way, it could happen anytime. He's got a whole fucking...
And it could have already happened.
Yeah.
It could have already happened.
Yeah, he's got a whole fucking subroutine that he's going to play on her, and it's going to be impressive.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
She's also going to be pretty impressive to him, too, once he learns she can see the future. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Crime-fighting duo.
Dude.
A detective and a vampire who can see into the future. They solve all the crimes together.
Of course. There's also... there were a couple of teams that I noticed in this that I'm like, that would be a better movie if I just watched those two. Right. That was one of... I wrote some other ones down. They'll pop up. I don't want to go through all my notes now, but they'll pop up.
Okay. So, yeah, they go to Florida. Edward presumably spends the whole trip staying inside.
I mean, I guess.
Because the mom can't... What did they tell the mom? Why doesn't Edward come to the beach with us? Oh, he's
English.
He's got a thing. Yeah. Florida must be just a waking nightmare for Edward.
Right.
Of just avoiding the sun.
I think that's what he likes. I honestly do. I think Edward is
it's a fun game for him.
I think Edward enjoys I think he kind of suffers in a spiritual way. I think he's if I suffer enough, I'll atone for all the wrongs I've done.
Right.
That's my theory. Also, by the way, so Bella's mother says the line "enough with the heavy" after sort of saying, "Are you sure you want to base your entire life around Edward?" Just asking. That's such a heavy question. She has to transition away to here's presents. So
right, it is a big concern because she's going to Alaska for
no
him.
Fucking
apparently,
kidding. It's she's like, "I'll never see you," and then she's like, "Yeah," and then she's like, "Well, enough of the heavy. Here's a present." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So you know what? I think I finally figured out why Bella's so attracted to Edward, and it's that Edward is literally the only person in her life who puts rules in place." He puts all kinds of fucking rules in place, and I think she just wants to live on the wild side of being controlled. I really do.
Sure.
I really.
She's got some issues that we'll go into. I don't know if she knows what she wants.
I mean, right. I think that's the appeal of Edward, is that there's so many givens that sort of take away her needing to want a thing.
Her parents definitely fucked her up. That's evidence.
I mean, they didn't do anything. They just gave her presents and smiled at her, and then kind of had secret cottages.
A shirt quilt. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they're doing the best they can, I guess.
That's not the best they can, dude. That's not the best they can. No.
I think they're doing fine.
No, they're not.
I grew up without rules, and I haven't fucked a single vampire.
That's only because of opportunity, Dave.
As hard as I try, I haven't.
Dave, we both know if a vampire came sliding into your life, that you would move to Alaska for him immediately.
That's literally everybody. Right?
I guess so. How can I've never met one, so I don't know what I would do, Dave. Who can tell?
If a vampire was like, I want a relation, marry me.
Yeah.
If a vampire was like, marry me, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
Sure, vampire.
Well, we've established that... Right. We've established that you won't be a blood boy. You won't do blood boy.
What other choice you have? Because they might kill you.
Well, right. So I guess then you're saying it's coercion, not attraction.
Yeah, it's just vampire. There's a vampire. It's like if I met an alien and they were like, marry me, I'd be like, do I get to go on the ship? Sure. Fuck it. I guess I'm gonna marry this alien.
They got divorced
because it's
space,
the most.
right?
It's the most important thing anybody will ever do.
Sure. Right, that's true. You would be the hero, and I'm sure they got. I'm sure they got divorce out there in the galaxy somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to imagine
if they have interstellar travel, how could they not have divorce?
Yeah, a space divorce, 100%.
That's
so they.
Yeah.
The redheaded vampire's back. They do one of their many woods chases.
What's her name again?
A lot of
Victoria.
Wood stuff.
What's her name?
That sounds right. That sounds like a vampire's name.
I fucking forgot. I forgot her name.
Yeah. It's kind of shocking how much Woods action is in these movies.
I was watching it being like, oh yeah, The Matrix is a good movie.
Yeah.
That's what I thought when I watched it. It's like, oh, The Matrix is good.
This Victoria lady is very hard to catch for a single vampire.
I fucking
Both
guess.
the wolves and the vampires are in on it.
Well, it's also okay. So not to play my hand too early on Team Vampire here, but like it's the wolves that fucked up that chase. The wolves fucked that chase up because they got all territory. It's like, dude, can you not tell that we're all trying to kill the bad guy? Like, put the territory shit aside.
I mean, they do that with the vampires. They make them. They're like the calm side.
Yes,
but they did start it from that story. They rolled up and
murdered a tribe, right?
Murdered a tribe. So I get it.
Me too.
It's the same. It's the civility talk. It's the why do they have to be so uncivilized? It's like maybe because they have a reason to be angry.
And that's not a bad story. And I don't have a problem with the notion of the werewolves having a long-standing grudge at all with the vampires for that reason.
Yeah, just maybe the vampires have a lot more work to do.
I agree, but like
they're like, it's cool, we're not mad anymore, and they're like, well, we still fucking are vampires. So maybe you need to send some gift baskets.
Yeah, the vampires don't seem to be working to repair the relationship at all.
No, they're not. They just stay away.
Yeah, or they kind of stay away, and they also I think they just still think of the werewolves as being a little less than them. Like that comes out a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a reasonable critique. It's not a
but whatever. They all have to come together around Bella, who is apparently a magnet.
She's
for this shit.
The only thing.
She is such a special girl now.
Yes, she's the only thing that binds this whole universe together.
Everybody is after her.
Like she's gonna like wake up and then just like walk through a mirror and realize that she is God. That's the only way this ends.
Yeah, like vampires have been around forever. Werewolves have been around forever, and for some reason she's the center of their goddamn world.
No kidding. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's messed up.
Well, is it? I mean, unless she is the unconscious deity that has...
Yeah, unless she's... Yeah, God.
Right.
And she could be. And so so she comes back from Florida. They go after the redhead.
Yes.
And finally we see Jacob, and he is a bad boy.
Oh, yeah, he definitely is striking
all in black.
Striking the what's the name of that actor? Jimmy Dean? What's James Dean?
Yeah, James Dean.
She's striking the James Dean notes.
He's got the black hair. He's got the like Spider-Man with the Venom suit.
Yeah.
Look, where he's all bad. He's not shirtless. He's the only one of his clan of werewolves to not be shirtless because he's got a tight black shirt on. I mean, later he goes shirtless, but when we first see him, he's all bad boy.
And I'm going to argue that was a huge mistake. That he wore that shirt, because if he didn't wear that shirt that time, then I wouldn't think he was always taking his shirt off aggressively.
Right.
Like it makes everything else that he does aggressive.
Right.
Because he doesn't. If it was just like, look, this is how we are. We don't wear shirts because we're were dudes. It's like, okay,
but they do wear shirts sometimes, which
right
brings me back to the question: why don't they have shirts on?
Oh, I think it's aggressive. It's all aggressive.
It's just bro stuff?
Yeah. What else could it be? I
mean, is it werewolf related? That, to me, is the most logical thing.
I know.
That something makes it so that they, they're sick of ripping shirts when they turn into werewolves or something.
I mean, I wish that was it. That would make more sense.
If that was it, they'd be naked, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
Which would be, let's be honest, a much more interesting saga.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It'd be something.
It would be attention grabbing, we'll just say. No, even if it burned their skin or something to wear a shirt, fine, but it doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't.
They just choose not to wear shirts.
It's just frat boy bullshit. I I say this very hesitantly, but like, even if they'd done a thing where it's like sort of connected somehow to the way their ancestors used to act or walk, or, you know what I mean? If they'd done something like that,
I don't know.
If they had done that, perhaps.
Well, because we meet our first lady werewolf. She doesn't have to be shirtless.
Right, that would have been... But admit it, though, Dave.
That would have been an interesting choice as well.
Yes, it would have. If she walked out without a shirt on, I'd be like, okay, well, I guess this is really something. Yeah.
Yeah. Leah, as I think is her name, and I think her and Jacob might be a thing, because he was talking about another love triangle, and they're all imprinting on each other, which I guess is like they pee on each other or something.
Imprinting just seemed like a word for intense attraction, too.
Right, but it's definitely like a werewolf thing. He said that we imprint on each other. I guess, and she says, have you imprinted on somebody?
It was so fucking ridiculous for her to ask that question. It's like, why would you ask that? You know the answer to it. Like, you're just going to piss him off. Don't be a fucking dick.
Yeah, she's really trying to play both sides in this one.
But, like, she's being so dishonest. At least I actually am not that upset with her in this movie, because I think Jacob acts like a complete dick this whole movie. And
well, this conversation is when he says, you'd be better if you were really dead than one of them. And I was like, oh, not cool, Jacob. That's 10 points away from you.
No, more than 10, bro. That's incel.
Big do's and don'ts of dating. Don't tell them you wish they were dead.
He just went full incel right there.
Yeah, I mean, again, Edward has said very creepy things as well.
Not like that.
They both say extremely creepy things.
Not like that. Not even close to that. Not even close to that.
He showed up in her room and stuff like that.
So did Jacob. What are you talking about? Look at you. So, like, this is what happened. This is the thing, and I'm going to say it now, but we can talk about it later. The Team Jacob does so many backflips to excuse this behavior that is, like, not only creepy, because yes, Edward's totally creepy, and neither of them are good guys. Like, let's not pretend.
Again, I'm team neither.
No, you're not. You have to choose, Dave.
That.
you can't be absent on this choice. I hear you're refusing to cooperate. I love it. So no.
I mean, I know we've had to choose, and I have to defend Team Jacob.
Right.
And my main argument has and always will be he's not 109.
17. Right. She's 17. He's 109. That does matter. Although I would say that argument gets a little bit defeated to some degree in this movie. Through some choices. Whereas Jacob, like, and I say this, I mean, maybe the story will change in episode 4 and 5. I don't know. But, like, he acts like a complete possessive maniac. He doesn't listen to what she says. He doesn't respect her boundaries. He assaults her.
I mean, I was going to say, he kisses her without consent. And this is the first time I've, like, been like, oh, I like Bella, is she fucking nails him
that too.
And nearly breaks her hand
I like that
because
too.
He's a werewolf. That was terrific.
That punch was great because you really didn't expect it.
Yeah, and then she's just like, fuck.
Yeah, I like that.
She reacts also like someone, because she's a good actress, and she pulls it off really well.
Yeah, so like, just briefly to go back to that thing you were asking about when she says, have you ever been imprinted? I wrote down, my note on that was, sometimes the writing is so bad, it just seems mean. Like, why the hell would Bella say, sounds like you know the feeling, when Jacob mentions imprinting? Like, she would never say that. That just wouldn't fucking happen.
She's it's all about her. She says later when the two factions are like, we have to work together, fuck that. She says, it isn't about rivalry anymore. It's about my safety.
Right.
It's like, it was just so honest for her to be like, guys, stop this like 1,000-year-old fight, because I'm here now. It's the me show. You're marching to the beat of my drum.
Have you not,
you two hunks?
Have you not felt it in your blood? That's why everyone's acting so crazy. I'm here.
Right. And she has every right to assume this, considering the history so far.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
They did this to themselves. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. That's on them.
So this is the part because they've learned people are after her. They decide to team up with the werewolves, right?
I mean, you actually had to skip a lot of stuff to get there.
What did I skip? The peeing on? They pee on each other.
There's that. There's just a lot of debate, and then there's she gets invited to the council,
right?
Which seems like it. Which again, it seems like it's being put on for her.
Yeah, it's like two fraternities fighting over a pledge.
Yes, that's exactly what it feels like.
It's so weird because it's like, why is she so fucking special? They let her into their like secret tribe meeting that no one else gets to be involved in, and it's again like, why her?
Yeah, there's no good reason. Also, I would have liked to see the scene where they debated letting her in the circle.
Yeah. They're like, look, Jacob has the hots for her. You know how whenever someone has a crush in our tribe, we let them into our like deepest secrets.
Right.
I think it's because they're friends with the dad. I think they're like, I think what it is that whether they know it or not, 'cause she says it, I'm Switzerland. Like they know that she's kind of important link, and she has a good heart, and she's almost is like a good asset for both sides.
I mean,
in this community where they're like, we don't have many neutral parties who know about both vampires and werewolves. So I think what's happening is I think both sides are just like, we want her to understand us.
I mean,
like
sure.
She's almost like their subconscious judge.
Yes.
Because like humans are the ultimate judge of them because they're both two monsters who have these chips on their shoulders about that, who are trying their best to live with humans, and part of that is that they can't tell the humans. So to have a human, they're like, what do you think? You know? Aren't we the best? Yeah. Aren't we the best ones?
Are we the good ones?
We've been fighting about this for years,
right,
you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, she falls into the god role. Right. I keep like there's no way. By the way, I'm like relatively convinced now that she does not end the series as a vampire.
Oh, maybe not.
She might become one. I do not think she ends.
Okay, I do have a prediction for this. Actually,
yeah.
This is how I think she's going to become a vampire. I thought it was going to happen in this movie because of this scene. What they do is they set up the most obvious foreshadowing because they tell the story of the vampire attacking their village. And the woman of the village, who's married to like the elder guy, she needs to distract the vampire. She sees the vampires killing whoever, and so she stabs herself in the gut.
Didn't need to do that.
And I was like, yeah, exactly, very excessive because all she was doing is drawing blood to attract the vampire. It was like, there's other ways to do that. Which Bella, smart cookie that she is, figured that one out later. But the moment she did that, I was like, Bella's going to do this.
Of course. Obviously.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do this. Yeah.
Right. But what I thought was going to happen, and I still think might happen later, is that Bella's going to sacrifice herself to save Jacob or to save the day. Or maybe she just gets hurt. And I think what's going to happen is Jacob is going to go to Edward and be like, make her a vampire. Because that's the only way she'll be alive.
Right. Okay. So that does make sense because Edward is constantly having to shove her into Jacob's maw this whole fucking movie.
Right. And Jacob's like, don't you turn into one of them. So like the only way to resolve that is Jacob having to face the fact of like, no, please turn her into one of them because
otherwise she'll die.
That's the only way we can save her.
Right. So that would imply that she ends up going with Jacob for a period of time.
Maybe. I don't know. There's only 2 movies left.
Well, there's one story technically spread over 2 movies. I don't think she ever goes with Team Jacob. I think Team Jacob.
I don't think so either.
Okay, so I
think she's just gonna lead him on.
She is leading him on. I agree with that. That is what's happening.
But I mean, you could argue. Look, nobody's good. Nobody's right. Everybody's a pest.
But I'm just gonna
because they're pestering the shit out of her. Jacob's like, I know you love me, and I'm gonna wait until your heart stops beating. I'm gonna be here, and it's like, okay, Jacob. That's fucked up. And then Edward shows up in her room and he's like, I broke your car because I don't trust you. Don't vote. And she's like, all right. And then like she just needs to run as far and as fast as possible.
So
but then when Edward's like, I hate life. Not Edward, Jacob. And he's like, you're marrying him. Oh, I'm going to die. She is like, kiss me. And it's like, well, that was horse
shit. I did not believe that for 1 minute. Anyway, I'm going to come back. I'm sorry, I don't want to skip ahead because that is going to be a 30-minute conversation.
Yes.
And we have to have it. I totally understand. I agree with everything you said.
Right.
I just want to...
So,
can I...
I had something...
I just have one question. I have one question I just want to ask before you keep going. So, did you notice this time that when they had the meeting in the house, I think it was when they denied the father the dinner again? It was like they're formulating a plan. All the vampires had black eyes that time. And it's not the first time we've seen it. And I'm like, okay, so what is controlling the way their eyes are? Is it like a moon cycle?
They're mood rings.
Right. So is it, but it's not mood. It's not emotional. It's like, it feels like it's a reverse period or something. You know what I mean? Like it's a cycle of some kind.
What's a reverse period?
like blood gets like slurped up into them from the earth once a month, you know?
Right, once a month they get their reverse period.
Yeah, the blood just leaps into their mouth and into their genitals.
I think part of me thinks like either it's something explained in the book, or it's the costume designer or makeup artist being like, "Hey, I got these black ones today," and they're like, "Yeah, shove them in."
I don't.
That's cool.
Speaking as a
no,
person
I
who's
know
made
there's
a
got to
movie,
be an actual motivation.
There's no way that it's accidental because they all had it. By the way, all of them had it.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know either. It was a weird decision. I don't need to spend all day on it.
In that meeting,
yeah,
they talk about why they need to team up with the werewolves, and their reasoning is that the vampires can't do it alone because they also have to hunt. When has that ever been an issue?
I don't know. I can't fathom. Like, I don't understand the logistics of any of this shit. I don't get it at all.
She says to them, like, I'm not going to let you guys starve. So, yeah, we'll team up. And it's like, when has... This has happened before. Bella has been attacked before. They didn't have to stop and feed.
Right.
Like, how long do they think this is going to last? What a weird... That's a very weird reasoning. It's like if John McClane was like, I'd love to help out, but I really need dinner.
Like
and it's like, well, you can have dinner afterwards, John McClane.
Or you can,
you can save the building and then eat dinner.
Or remember, John McClane, you're magic, so you can shoot a guy and like he'll have dinner on him somehow.
Right.
You know, like, yeah.
It's the weirdest excuse I've ever heard.
Well, and they fucking need a manager. Like the vampires need a person who's like, look, we can accomplish all this. Here, why don't you, Jasper, go hunt? I know that's what you want to do anyway. You, Rosalind, enough sulking. You're a bodyguard today. You know what I mean? Like just fucking assign some jobs.
Since when did they have to multitask hunting? Since when was that an issue?
I don't know.
In all the other movies, they never even mention it. What's weird to me is that there's a built-in way to team up. Which is that when they decide that Jacob has to carry Bella, they're like, we need their scent. And it's like, why didn't the writer make that the reason to team up to begin with?
I guess that's true. It would have been a slightly more sophisticated connection.
Yeah, instead they're like, we need to eat, so let's team up with the werewolves.
A thing we've never seen them do, by the way. Like, that's how afraid they are of making the vampires seem evil, is we never see them eat, ever.
Yeah, they eat animals, I guess.
Yeah, that's what they said,
they
right?
Hunt them in the woods.
I guess.
Which again, it's like, why can't they just? They're in the woods for the training. So like, pick a squirrel up. You're done.
Right. We know you can outrun them, for fuck's sake. Like, we just watched that shitty scene that was Matrix Minus. We know you can run them.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
I don't
know either. I can't figure it out. Can I tell you my favorite line in the movie? It's my favorite line. This is right after the moment where he gets punched, right? So they go back, all three of them. So Jacob and Bella, and I believe Edward's there too, and talk to Charlie, the father. And this is the line that Jacob gives. He says,
I think I have this written down,
I kissed
too.
Bella, and she broke her hand, punching my face. Total misunderstanding.
Yep. Total misunderstanding.
Says the sexually assaulting werewolf to the father cop.
And again, the father cop, we've been through this. Is there so many situations where, like, she fell down some stairs. This time, she broke her hand on my face. Misunderstanding. And the cop's just like, well, all right, kids will be kids.
Yeah, I mean...
And it's like, good God. I loved when the dad broke up. When Edward, what happens, he tries to kiss her.
Yes.
Edward psychically knows, so they're like, "What's up, bro? What the fuck?" And they're gonna fight.
Right.
And then the dad comes out and he's like, "What's all this then?" And gets in between them. And I wanted to see one of them just rip him in half. And they'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry."
Yeah, it really didn't. If it was a Rick and Morty episode, that's what would have happened.
Yeah,
I agree.
And if the dad knew what was happening, that her daughter is being like courted by a creepy vampire and a creepy werewolf, he would burn that town to the ground.
He would.
Like his head would explode.
I'm going to argue that he would join one of those teams. That's what he would do. Because
he'd join Team Werewolf because his friends are werewolves.
Yes, that's probably what he would do. Because he would know that, like, I can't kill them myself, not even with my finally active cop powers. I'm going to have to join one of these teams to fucking restore law and order. There's no other way.
I'll tell you what, though. He would start carrying silver bullets a lot more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he
would join the werewolves, but he'd be like, "Look, just in case."
Yeah, but
I'm not gonna...
I don't think he would be he'd be a Van Helsing, but he would take a side first.
Yeah.
That's what he'd have to do. Like, what are the choices?
I don't know, because then, all right, and then he'd take the werewolf side, and then there'd be a weird love triangle with Alice, because him and Alice are destined to be together.
Right. That's the
lovers.
thing. Yeah, so we get the real Romeo and Juliet. That's the real Romeo and Juliet, right? I mean, yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Can I skip ahead just a little bit?
I guess.
I'm sorry.
To what?
This is related to the dad. How did you feel about the marriage/sex talk they had? How did you feel about that part of the movie?
I didn't feel great.
I didn't hate it that much.
Didn't feel great.
I did not hate it that much. It was very uncomfortable, though.
Yeah.
But not.
I mean, it's supposed to be.
Not bad, though. It was not a bad scene.
Right. Yeah, she tells him she's a virgin, and he believes it. And then he's like, "Ew," and leaves.
I liked that, though.
Okay, this was again... Okay, I know the idea of it, because I loved... All right, this is what... I enjoyed that, like, the graduation speech is about how we have our whole lives to figure out what we want to do. We're not committing to anything. You know, none of us are trying to become permanent vampires
right.
or anything.
Who would do that? Nobody at this age.
And it resonates with her.
Yeah.
And then she asks her dad about marriage, and I know that's supposed to be a reflection of what Bella's deciding, but she's kind of like, "Dad, why haven't you gotten out there? You know, Alice has been talking about
no
you."
kidding.
Like, I was waiting for that. I was waiting for, like, they were setting it up where they're like, "Yeah, why him and Alice?"
Yeah, and then they dropped you off like an unwanted stepchild narratively.
Yeah.
They just deposited you on the sidewalk somewhere and left you out in the woods while they went off and had a different adventure than the one you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a shame.
I agree. That was missing. So it was a pleasure to me to see my theory that the blood rage and boner things were related. That was my theory in episode 1, if you remember. Is like, so wait, so like, does he have like one sort of primordial urge when he has sex? And the answer is yes to that question.
Right, he's afraid he's going to fuck her to death because she's like, "Why can't we make love?" And he's like, "I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to fuck you. I'm going to fuck you to shreds." By the way, Edward...
That's what they call it in vampire. Like,
yeah.
They have a bunch of sophisticated language.
I was thinking about this. Edward must casually fantasize about eating Bella's human friends, right?
I mean, I think he might even mention it from time to time when they're making out, just because he wants to see, are they actually your friends?
Right. Whereas, like, if you could lose one of your friends, like, who's your least favorite?
Like,
friend?
it's definitely that guy that was on the date with you, right? The guy that vomited from the action movie.
He looks delicious.
Yeah, he's at least juicy. Look at his fucking...
Yeah, he's supple.
Look at his complexion. You know, he's shiny.
Yeah, no, he is shiny.
Yeah. You know,
it must be so hard not to hate humans. You know, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't like hair on my food.
Oh,
do you?
No, hate it.
Yeah. So, if I were a vampire...
You'd be shaving people all the time.
Oh. That's not actually where I was going to go with this. But you're right.
You would be. It'd be...
Yeah, what I was going to say is that I would never want to eat a deer.
Right.
Because they're all hairy and it's gross. They have the fucking diseases on them and bugs and shit. I would want a nice hairless human. I think that's why, like, we must be a delicacy to animals, right? Where they're like, a bear is like, oh, I got that human. They might shoot me because of it, but it was worth it. Like mountain lions and stuff, where it's like, we must be the best to eat.
Oh, there's no doubt.
There's nothing on us that's like, there's no horns, there's no scales. It's just pure, like, beautiful, fleshy meat.
And just think about
cut into like butter.
Just think how enriched we are from like things like our anxiety, or like all the fitness shit we're doing all the time. Like, oh my god,
and we're so defenseless.
Oh yeah, a lion is just like lions are fighting it every day. Every lion in the world's fighting it every day.
So like that. The stuff with the friends must be really tough.
It's got to be here's my thought. What's stopping a vampire from like getting a little scratch, and like when they sleep or whatever, and they just dip, 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 dip? What's stopping a vampire from doing that?
Define dip, 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 dip.
Like there's like the way vampire bats do, right? Where vampire bats, like what they do is they make a little bite and they have like a thing in their saliva so you don't feel it, and then like they just drink on you until the morning. You don't die.
Oh, a little dip, 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 dip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he might have, he's probably considered that with Bella.
I mean, I think she probably would have told him it was fine.
Yeah, it's probably a slippery slope situation. I mean, one imagines.
One assumes. That's presumably why the whole abstinence thing is a thing anyway. Right. It's like abstinence is sort of not a moral position, but just sort of a biological imperative for him. Right. He can't really do anything he wants to do, so he's like living this white knuckle existence. Yeah,
he's a weird pervert, and he's just holding on by a thread.
He probably is. He doesn't have to be, though. By the way, he does not have to be. Like, the movie does a better job of explaining away his faults, this movie, than it does anyone else in the movies.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
He has a more viable story now.
They should have done this in the first movie.
They absolutely should have. It would have changed how he felt about the guy.
It's baseline what needs to happen, and then it goes from there. It needs to get more understanding, but this is like where it starts, where I start understanding Edward a little bit.
Right. Instead of that baseball
Not the
scene.
End point.
Right. Instead of that baseball scene, they just have a talk about sex, and like, we learned this. Like, that's a better movie.
So they're making newborn vampires. They're overturning cars like it's a goddamn baseball riot.
That entire idea I thought was so poorly communicated that I never cared about it.
Right.
No idea what the fuck the point of that was.
Well, the newborns are just they're out of control. At one point, I had this written down as Bella says, "There's nothing I'm ever going to want more than Edward." She says at 18.
Right.
That's when she's talking to the
Rosalind,
sister.
yes.
And she's like saying what everybody's thinking. She's like, you really shouldn't be a vampire. Let me tell you my story that is horrendously dark.
Yeah, I mean, she keeps being told over and over and over.
She gets a lot of backstories, and
But like nobody has told her yes, be a vampire. Nobody's told
no.
Out of all the things that she's done that are stupid, and I would say 80% of her decisions are stupid in all these movies. The only one that people are always arguing against is don't become a vampire every single time.
Yeah.
So, like, what does it take?
And the vampires are saying it. They're like, hey, don't become a vampire. And she's like, what do you know?
Yeah, what the fuck do you know about being a vampire? Everything? Yeah, but I was born to be a vampire. No, nobody's born a vampire. Can't have kids. Right. That's one of the problems.
We actually we're quite uncomfortable being vampires.
Right.
It's like someone being
hell.
like, yeah, it's like, I want to be on fire. And people on fire are like, trust me, you don't. Like, what do you know, person that's on fire? Someone light me on fire. And one guy's like, well, marry me first, then I'll light you on fire.
Fine. Speaking of lighting them on fire, just to skip all the way to the end, my God, are vampires flammable? Did you see? Like, it took nothing. It took absolutely nothing.
He takes a Zippo and drops it on the vampire, and it goes up like a bale of hay. And
not a bale of hay. It was a kerosene stacked person. Yeah. It was like,
I was waiting for them to be like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Whoa!
It was so much fire, so fast.
I don't understand vampires anymore because they also shatter like glass.
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
Which I don't think is what happened in the when they tear apart James, scumbag.
He was bloody.
it was bloody, and they redid that. I think this movie it's like a real Prisoner of Azkaban situation,
They did a
where they're like,
mild
let's
reboot.
make it darker and grittier, and also like adjust a few things. So they, in the plot, they're like, okay, we need to team up with the werewolves and fight these newborns. And then they keep referring to Jasper, the like tactician. They're like, Jasper, does that work? And he's like, yeah, that works.
Sure.
And it's because he has experience with newborns. We talked about his backstory. And I want to talk about the training, because then they all go in the woods to train of how to fight the newborns.
By the way, I'm never going to call it the training. I'm going to call it Twilight Fight Club for the rest of the series.
100%.
That's what it is. It's Twilight Fight Club.
And of all the training, the only thing we hear Jasper say is never you turn your back on your enemy.
Well, and also don't let them get their arms around you, because that happens once.
And it's like, that is your training, huh? Well, because I could have told you both of those things.
But also, Dave, you're discounting his other third thing that he says: expect the unexpected.
Right. What's funny about that is that they don't listen.
Of course, it's impossible.
Jacob gets one of their arms. They accidentally turn their back, and Jacob gets hugged. He gets a hug.
He gets a hug, and it hurts.
And again, it's like, this is any enemy. Just expect the unexpected. Don't turn your back on them, and don't let them get their arms around you.
It's probably why we never see anybody riding a werewolf, because it turns out they have very fragile spines and bones.
It's true. Well, depends on your definition of riding a werewolf, because Bella rides the shit out of Jacob. She gets a Jacob ride in this.
I mean,
because he has to carry her.
Why does he have to carry her? I didn't understand that.
That is a very good question.
I couldn't figure it out. I was like, why is he still carrying her? She's a fucking adult woman. What is
here's
happening?
My theory.
Okay, great.
Is that if you had a werewolf and you were on a hike, wouldn't you make them carry you? If I was like, oh, it's a 2-hour hike, put out those arms.
So
put out those arms.
You're just turning into
werewolf.
a shitty terrier. You're just like, you know what? I'm done now. I'm done walking. You have to carry me the rest of the way.
I do think the idea is that they were walking so far that it was like, you really need to just have Jacob. But like, she could walk some of the way.
She would want to, because that is incredibly uncomfortable.
It is so weird that he's this shirtless kid is like, I'll take you. And then she like walks up to him like he's a horse, like, I'm ready. Right. And he has to like get her in his arms, and then they walk off. Like, it's part of the plan. It's so weird.
It's also the weirdest way to ride a person, by the way. Like, why wouldn't you ride on his back if he's going to carry you the whole time?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? Well, that's what she did with Edward.
Yes.
Everybody's carrying her around in these movies.
Yes, metaphorically and physically.
I assume this is what happened, is that he's walking with her, and she probably says, like, if you turned into a werewolf, this would be, and he's like, no. She's like, oh, okay, fine. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, if I had a saddle, and he's just like, no, none of that.
Right.
Like, I think werewolves are just like, they're sensitive about that. They're like, you're not fucking riding me.
They do seem sensitive about it. Right, but like they keep it reinforcing at every moment how animalistic they are. Like they're begging for Bella to ride her. I can't.
But instead he carries her.
Yeah, and she never objects to it. It's like, that's where it starts to be a little bit like, well, maybe she is leading him on, because like
well, she keeps touching his chest.
Right.
While he's carrying her. I mean, how could she not like casually poke his nipple? That she's being carried for presumably hours, like the nipple's right there.
It's right. I mean, you give it a little tease or a tug for sure, just to see what happens.
Just a boop, boop.
Dave, you have ways to learn about the nipple. It sounds like
it's like the horn of the person, where you're like you see a deer and you're like, get out of the way, boop boop boop.
It makes them yelp.
You poke the nipple of the direction you want them to go.
Yep. Yeah. It's like a direction pad. That's what it's like. I totally agree.
I'm not saying she's going to engage in nipple play with the werewolf carrying her.
You're not saying that though. You're not denying that.
Not
though.
like erotic nipple play. Just like Just a boop.
By the way, like, I love how you're describing this feature on people and werewolves. Like, if people had just sort of built-in, like, manual movement stuff, like, you could just, like, tug open their, like, chest and just, like, hey, can you move over? And, like, you push the right area, and then they just move over to the right. That'd fix some problems.
That's what they figured out in Ratatouille, right?
Yeah, but he did it with hair, right? He was like, yeah, maybe that's true.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, why couldn't there be a Ratatouille with nipples?
It could be.
Why couldn't that have been the movie? That Pixar movie?
Yeah.
Where, like, the rat's crawling around in his shirt, pulling his nipples.
Could have been, yes, pulling one of the two, maybe gnawing on it for, like, more gentle moves.
Yeah. That's my nipple rat. Yeah. He's cool.
Don't worry, he's clean.
He tells me what to do.
He's clean.
He tells me how to cook. That's why I'm always bleeding.
Yeah, he's a fantastic cook. He got great taste. That's him chewing on my nipple now, so
right.
That should help you believe that. Wait, okay, so
I guess
do you want to talk about Edward's sexuality now? Do you want to save it to after highlight? What do you want to do?
Are we still in highlight?
Yeah,
I have some questions.
Oh yeah, we're still in highlight. Yeah, we're not even done with the fucking movie yet.
Okay, well, let's wrap this up. They go up to a tent and I have questions about this.
Right. Why do they go to a tent?
Yes, that's the question.
Yeah.
Is what are they doing? Right. What is happening right now in the movie?
No idea. Like,
I have no fucking idea. They go up Mount Everest, and they camp in the snowy mountain.
Yeah.
Bella almost freezes to death, so she needs to cuddle with Jacob while Edward watches.
Which is like, and by the way, he's not that bummed about it.
No, he's curious.
Yeah,
as to where this is going to go.
Yes, I agree. I think that would be the way to describe basically all of his third act and late second act interactions with Jacob.
It was hard when they get in the tent. I was like, how is this not going to be a three-way situation?
Right.
Because it's like they're setting it up like a porno where they set up that the werewolves are warm. They make her impossibly be freezing to death. And Edward's just like, geez, I'm sorry. I guess we might not have. Maybe we should have come up here in the Alps. And it's like, I don't know why you're up there. I don't know why this is happening. But now Bella's freezing to death. So Jacob, who's just hanging out outside, is like, well, I'll cuddle up.
Coming in.
Yeah, and so they have like a chat while she's asleep about her.
I kind of liked that conversation.
I mean, I liked seeing these two. That's one of the things you're waiting for, is Jacob and Edward to sort of get along a little bit. So that was nice. Then there's the war down in the field, which they're like, this is our perfect place for our advantage, the field. And I was like, yeah, I guess.
Like, it really makes you think.
It's just an even field. I don't know why it gives them an advantage.
Why did nobody from the newborns ever says, can I see your battle plan, dear red goddess? Because like they emerged from a pond, so like they leapt.
She's keeping them in the dark.
Sure, but they don't ask any questions. They're not like, "Hey, why are we doing it? What is the objective?"
Or like, how are we doing it?
Yes, like what is the objective of this? I understand there's 15 of us, so we're killing these guys for question mark. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also, like, she knows about werewolves. Why doesn't she fucking tell them about the werewolves? The red-haired one.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's baffling.
I don't know what she's trying to do. I think she's just trying to throw as much distraction and fodder so she can go up
with Riley.
With Riley, who are we supposed to know who Riley is?
No, that was a big mistake. I argue. So that was another point I raised. Is like, so at some point Edward like has a mind game with Riley to convince him you're fighting for the wrong vampire. And so, like,
right, and it starts with he's like, "Hi, Riley," and I'm like,
"Yeah,
who's Riley?"
He knows,
and he's like, "You don't have to do this, Riley. You're from Forks."
Right? Yeah,
I'm like, "He's from Forks?
What do you mean he's from Forks?
Who is Riley?"
Yeah,
it should have been the sick guy from Face Punch. Like, it should have been him or somebody, like one of her friends.
Yes, it should have been the fucking Face Punch guy. That's exactly
because he's like
who.
Yeah, he's like, she turned you because you know all about Forks. And it's like, why didn't she turn one of her friends because he'd know all about her?
It would be a real consequence, something that mattered in the movie, right. Finally.
But I was wondering, did I miss Riley? Like, is Riley part of the previous movie?
No, he's not. I think that the only thing we might not have, like, understood was that the first scene of the movie is Riley in Forks.
Right.
I thought for some reason it was up in Seattle or something, but I don't think it was now.
Oh, that was Riley.
I think that was Riley in Forks. I think.
Yeah.
I think. By the way, I missed most of the information here because once again, the town Forks made me laugh for a good 5 minutes. I didn't retain any of this. So I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what the fuck happened to Riley other than he got bit and drug away. Is that what happened?
I guess.
Yeah.
Again, I thought that was Seattle too. I didn't make the association because it happens right away, and I don't know who Riley is. So I was like, "Who is this guy?"
Right.
It should have been one of her friends.
It should have been one of her friends.
Like, oh, it's him.
Yes, it should have been one of her friends, or it should have been one of the vampires in the family.
Yeah, but we're skipping ahead too because we have the tent cuddling.
Sure, the tent cuddling is a way of is a really slapdick way of reinforcing the question of like who's actually better for Bella, right?
Because Jacob's thing is he's like, feel me, I'm flesh and blood. I'm not a corpse.
I'm better for you. I have a real life.
He would have had a point if he didn't then try to fucking kiss her.
He might have had a point. He is such a maniac in this movie, though. I don't want to get ahead. Go ahead. Keep making your points.
Well, in the morning, she apologizes for almost freezing to death. Because it's on her.
Sure.
Jacob walks up shirtless.
Again.
In the snowy mountains. And he overhears that they are planning to marry. And he's like, oh, you're getting married to him.
He overhears Edward saying it because Edward wanted him to hear it.
Wanted him to. And so she's pissed at Edward. She yells, Jake, stay, which I thought was funny to say to a dog person.
Mm-hmm. And he was like, no. And he ran off, you know?
Yeah. Drop it, Jacob, drop it.
No.
And then she says, kiss me, because they have this whole thing where he was like, I won't kiss you unless you tell me to.
Yeah.
And then they kiss.
And he went for it.
Bella, what fucking psychosexual like game are you playing at this point?
Couldn't figure it out at all. Totally baffling.
Yeah. And so then Edward hears Jacob's thoughts while they're kissing, which must have been interesting.
He said they were very loud. So I have to assume that
it was him going, I'm a good boy.
I'm fucking kissing her. Yeah. Row rad. I finally got my smooch rad.
And so, yeah, meanwhile, there's like a war happening with the army. And by the way, the army was maybe 25 vampires.
It wasn't even that many. It was like 11. Yeah. It was like 11 vampires. It was like, okay.
Yeah, it was that faction versus the Windbreaker clan that is the Cullens fighting in a field with the werewolves. And then up on the mountain, what's her name shows up with fucking
Victoria with Riley, yeah.
And is like, this is for James, the dirtbag. And again, it was like, really? This is for James?
Yeah. Couldn't believe it.
And then they fight. Edward just fucking snaps her neck. He bites her neck. And Bella does the thing. She cuts her arm to distract her.
To keep him alive, which works.
Yep. And then they murder her. And then they all go down, and then we meet the vampire, the vampire bosses, the vampire...
the sub-bosses, and I did not understand what that scene was about. Did you?
Well, it's very funny, because they clearly orchestrated the whole thing.
Or they at least let it happen, right? We saw them earlier.
They knew, because there's that scene, where she's overseeing them, and she's, like, talking and saying, like... All right, what are we going to do? Are we going to let this... they've been there the whole time, and it's very funny that then if they don't want to be... Because they act like they don't know anything about it, but it's like, then why are you here?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they literally stroll out of the wood just like, nice day. Oh, were you having a war?
Oh, and it's was there a vampire war here?
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing in the woods of the Pacific Northwest? Yeah. Didn't we last see you in like Italy or Rio or something?
Yeah. You have no reason. They have no reason to be there. It's completely ridiculous.
they just happen to be in the neighborhood, and then they act all coy. We're like, surely we didn't know about it, and they're like, of course, because they're trying to keep the peace. And they're like, but we are going to kill that one girl because the one of the army surrenders, this young girl, and that was dark because they're like, we want to adopt her, and then they're like, no.
Yeah, what was the reason for that? What was the reason for?
Because they're acting like they're on the side of the law. So they're like, she broke the law that we clearly. I think, is it Dakota Fanning?
Yes.
I think she tortures the girl.
Yes, she does.
Because she's like, what do you know? And I think that's her way of trying to find out what she was told. Like, she knows what happened.
Well, but she's
torturing her to see what she was told.
And they call her out on that because they're like, she'll tell you. And she's like, I know. So she just tortured her for fun.
Yeah, they're like weird and evil. This was a weird scene because it also felt like they were going to let her stay with the Cullens. Like, the conversation seemed to end with them being like, okay, it's settled. And then she just walks up and kills her.
Yeah.
Or she has the other vampire. And the Cullens don't do anything because apparently they did decide in that conversation, no, she is going to get murdered.
Well, I think they don't, like, they're clearly overruled, right? Like, this, like, Dakota Fanning... vampire Dakota Fanning clearly has more weight than anybody else there.
Yeah. But what I mean is the drama within the scene, I couldn't tell what they had decided before she was then like, all right, kill her.
Yeah,
I thought they had decided that she was not going to die. And then they just did it, and the Cullens were like, all right. And it was like, I don't know what's happening.
It was very confusing. Also, another thing about vampire eyes, what makes them red versus yellow?
I think how bloodlusty they are.
No, I think it's what blood they fed on. That's my theory. That's my theory. That's my theory.
That's a good theory.
Yeah, it's like, because otherwise I'm like, what is the fucking insanity of their eyes? I can't figure it out.
Right. Before this, Jacob got a death hug, and it broke half his bones.
Right. Yes, one side of his bones.
They're like, we need to set the bones before he regenerates.
Otherwise, it'll be a Quasimodo wolf.
Yeah. Apparently. Yeah. And so then they take him back, and Dr. Cullen works on him. He says his body temperature will burn off all the morphine, and I was like, I don't know if that's how morphine works, but sure.
No, morphine has to be served on ice like oysters.
Oh, okay.
If you don't drink it cold, it's no good.
It's no good.
It's like hot orange juice. You ever had hot orange juice?
Oh yeah, it's garbage. It won't heal my bones.
It's like a slime. It's like a slime in your mouth. Anyway,
you're right.
Yeah.
And then they have a conversation, and Jacob's just like, even if you become a vampire, I'll still love you. That's his arc, is basically him being like, if you become a vampire, I'll fucking hate you. And then at the end, he's like, maybe it's not so bad if you become a vampire. Because, I mean, someone must have told him at this point. Like, I get it, because the vampire thing is permanent. But someone must have told him, like, we're all very young, and she might not stay with Edward.
I mean, I guess. Like, I don't think...
That's his drama, is that I think if Edward wasn't a vampire, I think if he was just some other kid, then I don't think Jacob would be as bent out of shape. Because the idea is it's like she's making a life change for him. And it upsets him because he knows that if her and Edward don't work out, she's still a vampire who is a sworn enemy.
That's generous, and yet he still believes it'd be better to kill her than let her become a vampire.
Right, which we had this conversation last episode, which is that if her soul is damned, isn't it better for her to die than become a vampire? I want you to know that my cat's anus is right by my face right now.
That does inform the damnation which we all face. Mm-hmm. It really does. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Kitten, could you lie down?
You're working very hard to justify what Jacob did.
No, I just think that's part of it with Jacob. I don't think Jacob was not in good form during this movie. I think that just part of his frustration is like, it's the equivalent of I'm moving to Alaska. It's all right, you're making a big life decision this young, and it creates a situation where that no matter what happens between you and Edward, I still have a problem. And he's getting over that idea at the end. Because he keeps saying after I'll love you until your heart stops beating. And basically then he says, and I'll love you until your heart stops beating, and after that. Meaning that when she becomes a vampire.
Right. It seemed clear that he didn't think that the vampire thing is now the end of their story, whereas he did before.
Yeah, he got over that idea, and I think that helps him at the end, because he's like...
I don't know if it got over it.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
Well, but that's the thing, right, and you said it exactly right, because he has about that much chance. Like he has.
Oh, no, she's telling them flat out, like, I'll never know.
Which is, again, I just get very frustrated with people sort of... in general, right now, we're having a conversation about like respecting what women tell you, and yet
Jacob does not do
not
that.
At all, not even close, And Edward, for all his many faults, does.
Right. He says, "I can sense how I make you feel physically," which is a creepy thing to hear from a man.
Yes,
but it's even creepier to hear from a man who you know can have like wolf sense. Because you're like, what does that mean? What are you doing?
Right. What are you like, smelling exactly?
What are you smelling? Is this like a Hannibal Lecter thing?
Right.
They're also fighting for wrist real estate on Bella in this one.
Yeah, they are. They really are.
Jacob's like, I made you a little wrist thing. And then Edward's like, I made you a little wrist thing.
Yeah.
And Bella must be like, guys, I really just have... Like, I don't want both of my wrists to be covered in your fucking tacky-ass shit.
I also just hate jewelry. That's why you never see me wearing any of it. Could have asked me.
But yeah, Jacob's basically like, I know you have feelings for me. And that's his conversation with Edward is a little creepy, because they're like discussing her like she's not there. Like she doesn't have any agency when she's asleep. They're just like, well, what do you do if you get her? What do you do if you get her? What do you like... And it's like, it's a little weird.
It's weird. No, it's totally weird, because it's like we went back to the 19th century or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of ownership over Bella in this.
Of course there is. And it's partly because she's not the protagonist of the film, and the film's not really about her.
You know, she really isn't.
No, she isn't. She doesn't do...
She's like, she's the MacGuffin.
Yes, she's the MacGuffin. The movie...
She's the object of desire by everybody.
Yes, correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
You know, even like Todd, the mummy kid, you know, like in a scene that was probably cut, came and like offered her some bindings for her other wrist or whatever.
Right. Someone wants to eat her or give her a mummy's curse or have sex with her or accidentally fuck her to death. Or turn her into a vampire, or not turn her into a vampire, or marry her, or bring her to Florida, or like there's just everybody's tugging on Bella. That's again why I hope this ends with her just being like, okay, fuck this, and just getting in like this should end with her getting in like like a nice fancy like convertible driven by a mummy.
I agree.
He's like, "Sup, losers," and then they drive off.
You guys can see my band next Friday as he's driving away.
Yeah,
like she needs to just date a college fucking like a college mummy or you know,
it would be
like a 21-year-old warlock or some shit to end this series.
It would actually. I think the funniest version though is she goes to college and then she comes back with just like a regular dude, and she's like, "Jacob, Edward, this is Greg," and Greg's like, "Hi guys," and they're just like, "Are we gonna kill this man?" Because you know they're thinking of it constantly, and it's just every conversation is Greg just like, I'm Greg, I'm great, I'm gonna marry Bella, we're doing great, and she's like, isn't he great? And then just fucking Jacob and Edward just white knuckling through every interaction
for the rest of eternity. I totally agree.
Yeah,
or I mean, you know, or to keep. Yeah, I agree. Greg is just like a regular athlete type, like a young Republican.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like,
a Republican.
Yeah, he's a Republican. That'd be amazing, right? Like he's like a lower level monster, but it's just kind of it's just like
he's not a vampire, but he does listen to a lot of Ben Shapiro. Yeah. So
I heard a lot about you, Edward. Anyway, I'm just gonna send you a couple links. Do you read The Drudge? You read The Drudge? Can you imagine?
And Edward's like, I'm 109, of course. Of course I follow Ben Shapiro. What are you talking about?
Yes, I once had a dinner with the Matt Drudge, or whatever the fucking guy's name is. Yeah, man, that would be a pretty amazing end to this movie. Or a series, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the thing. It feels like it's setting up, if this was a smarter series, it feels like it's setting up. I've said it every time, a fuck you both situation where they're both such wieners fighting over her that she really needs to at some point break away. But I know that's not what's going to happen.
I agree with that, except for she's also very shitty. This movie...
No, again, she's working some sort of weird angle too.
Well, this movie in particular made her, I thought, a lot less sympathetic than the other movies have made her.
I have a pitch.
Oh, please, Dave, hit me with it.
What if it ends with Edward waking up and he's been robbed? And he goes to Jacob, and Jacob's like, I was also robbed. And then it's cut to Bella in like a fancy car driving alone, and she's like, on to the next vampire.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then she drives into the town of Spoons, and then credits.
Spoons, of course.
Yeah, she's just running a grift.
Yeah, she's just a real Marla from Fight Club. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Dave, how would that honestly be not an improvement? It would be an improvement.
Oh, it'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be an improvement. But I also, this protagonist has not earned enough sympathy for me to root for her to get free.
It's like you said, she's not a protagonist.
I mean, over the course of the series, she is.
I give her credit because of her age. Because I'm not holding her like. I was not smart when I was her age. And I think most people weren't. Everything feels like... Again, she says, I'm only going to want Edward in my life for the rest of my life. And it's like, if you heard that from a teenager, you'd laugh in their face. And I get now why parents will be like, you're grounded forever. Because it's just like, I think what teenagers are to parents, it's like babysitting a drunk for 10 years, right?
I mean, yes, I agree with that.
It's like, I just need to keep you contained so you don't make any major mistakes until your brain is working.
It's not clear to me. It's not clear to me.
Makes me feel old, but I get it.
It's not clear to me that the movies are actually taking this point of view, though. Like, to me...
I'm just saying that she's a teenager.
Right. And,
she's just graduated. It's what Anna Kendrick says. Like, it's kind of the point. Is Anna Kendrick's like, we don't have a plan. We can do whatever we want. We go to college. We take acid. We get into weird trouble, and then we figure out what we want to do, which isn't the right way to do college, but that's
it's a way.
Different conversation.
I also don't see. I kind of don't totally subscribe to the idea of, oh, she's a teenager, so none of this is really that meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, teens can be maniacs too.
Of course they can. Columbine. like let's start with that.
Let's whip out Columbine. Let's start with Columbine.
Sure. You want to whip out Columbine? Fuck you. Yeah. No, but I mean, even on the other side.
If Cullen did a Columbine, that would make the news.
If who did?
Cullen? Edward?
Oh, yes, it would.
Yeah.
Yes,
a vampire Columbine?
That'd be a horror show. That's for sure.
Also, Vampire Columbine sounds like a goth band.
It does. Or it sounds like the band of the guy she meets in college.
That's true.
Look, so wait. So
Greg's band.
I want to like, I'm not willing to write off everything she's doing just because she's a teenager. I'm not willing to do that, because if we're going to do that, we got to wipe off everybody but Edward. That's right. The first thing. And the only reason we're not wiping Edward's record clean is because he's technically lived longer. Although the thing that makes teenagers stupid is not the amount of years they've been alive. It's the hormones and the biology, right?
Right. So their genitals are trying to, it's like the thing, they're trying to take over their bodies.
And there's a pretty good chance
assume their identities.
There's a pretty good chance that's still true of Edward. There's a pretty good chance he's still under the emotional influence of teenagedom.
Well, that's the question.
It's not clear.
That's the big question.
It's definitely not clear.
Is Edward 17 forever?
It's hard to say. Or
is he an old man? He's mentally an old man.
This movie, they moved more into the old man camp, I would argue.
Yeah. He wants a traditional fucking marriage. He's an old man in his beliefs, in his experiences, and I think that's what counts, right?
No, not when we come to like teenage morality, because I do think it matters a lot. But teenage morality, the thing about it is that, like, as you said, they're being controlled by their genitals in a way that the rest of us don't have to deal with after we've paid the price finally. You know what I mean? After we've survived those years. So
you're saying, wait, Edward, in terms of teenage morality, isn't an old man?
No, because he might be under the same physiological things that they are.
I mean, that's a nightmare. If he is pubescent,
it seems likely.
First of all, he's post-pubescent. He's 17.
That's not
most of the things that happened already happened.
Depends on your body, dude. That's not all of them.
Sure, but he's like, he's clearly post-puberty for the most part. It is true that boys don't develop empathy until they're like late teens, like 16 or 17, as opposed to girls will actually develop it earlier, which is why we see more, guys on the internet doing terrible things.
Makes sense.
There's certain, differences, and there's certain things that's developing. If he is permanently stuck in 17
physiologically,
that's interesting. I don't think it excuses him.
It doesn't, but it excuses him as much as it excuses anybody.
But also, he's not lusting for sex. He's lusting for blood.
That might be, no, that's not true. I think they're one urge, dude. That's the thing that we learned this time.
Right, he's gonna fuck her to shreds. Yeah,
but that they're related urges, like that they can't be separated for vampires, is what I understand this movie to be saying. Right. Which is stupid, but that's what the movie seems to be arguing. The point, like, let me like reach out to the larger point I'm making here. I'm only making it for the sake of debate. Because if I had to...
Well, no, we don't know for sure what's going on inside Edward.
We don't. But this movie gave us more of a window into him than we've had so far. And from what I can tell, the years have taught him better ways to behave. He has learned better ways to behave. So, like, one of them is, I don't get to tell her what to do. She decides what she wants to do. I can warn her. I can try to remove the choices from her, but I make mistakes when I do that. So she makes her own decisions, right? And that's the result of the years. But he's...
Yeah.
Right? Are you poo-pooing that?
I would argue it doesn't take 109 years to realize that women should make their own decisions.
I agree with that, but it is harder for a person from 1918 to think that than for Jacob to think it, right?
Right. Edward's definitely not woke. I think if you talk to Edward about
he's woke
stuff,
either.
I think Bella is probably scared to mention certain things.
Oh, sure. Like
I think in today's climate, she'd turn to him reading the paper and like just keep her mouth shut.
Yeah.
She's just like, I don't know if I want to hear his thoughts.
Right. I totally agree. They're not going to see Fruitvale Station or Get Out together.
She's fucking a weird grandpa who she's like.
But this is the thing is like you're not giving enough nuance to this character. You're sort of making him one thing based on the years he's alive, and I'm telling you,
he's a weird grandpa. He is Get Out. You just mentioned Get Out. He's Get Out. He's a weird old man stuck in a supple young body.
Yeah, but they transferred their consciousness to a separate body, bro. Not like they didn't get brain trapped in a separate body.
Right, but it's the same idea as like in a Get Out. There's like these young men acting really like traditional, and that's what Edward is. I know it's not the same process as Get Out. I'm just saying that's kind of what he is. He's a young looking kid who has old person sensibilities, which, I'd ask him, like, if I needed to buy a house, I'd go to Edward and be like, do you have any tips? About, he probably knows good, like,
right.
He probably has a lot of life experience.
Like how do you handle simple home repairs? He's way more useful than Jacob at that. I do think that his abstinence and stuff, his morals are moral values, not just traditional ones. So, for instance, it seems reasonable at this point, based on what he told Bella, and let's assume he's not a liar. Can we assume that he's not a liar? He seems like he's a pretty forthcoming person for the most part.
He is a child of Satan, but sure.
Sure, I like that. Yes, he's an honest child of Satan. So if we accept what he said, it seems like he has either in the past sort of like either slept with women and murdered them or whatever, and like he realized I don't want to be this way, or because of his moral upbringing has never slept with a woman as a vampire. Those are the two options, right? Which means that his relationship to Bella was entirely a thing that was so strong he couldn't say no to it, and he's been trying to say no to it since the very beginning. Which
you're proposing that he is essentially a virgin at 109.
I think the movie might be saying that. I mean, maybe he slept with people in 1918, but then he wouldn't have these morals. So yeah, I guess I am saying that's what the movie is saying.
Right, and that really concerns me.
No, it concerns me too for a lot of reasons because there's a lot of illogical connections there. But aside from that problem, that means his interest in Bella was never. He's not predatory. Like, he was never after her for a predatory reason. He was...
I would say it's still predatory, but yeah,
no, but it literally isn't in the sense of his intent, right? It was never his intent to connect to her.
But his actions might still be predatory.
They might be in the sense that he is reacting to an impulse, but then he sort of is constantly at struggle with himself morally because of it. Right, so like what he's trying, and again, this is like what it's like for a religious teenager, let me tell you, is like to feel two sets of feelings, right? Where it's like, on the one hand, your body wants this, on the other hand, your morals say that, and like that sort of results in the person that he is, and why he's so unclear. And like that doesn't mean that he's not entirely predatory, but I do think it softens the child molester thing that you've been implying this whole podcast. Because he didn't do that. What happened was a person kept knocking on the door, and he finally couldn't stop saying no to it, is what the movie is trying to tell us.
It seems creepier, though, because I think he's putting her on this pedestal then. Because the idea... Absolutely. The exchange is that he's like, you're pure. I don't want to fuck you to death, and I don't want to make you a vampire. You're this special thing that I'm going to put in this cage. And, like, you can't be hurt, and I have to protect you all the time, even if it means trapping you, even if it means doing, making you do things and not listening to you and betraying your trust.
Yes.
You're so special. You're like a snowflake, and I can't touch you. I can't make you a vampire, a dirty vampire like me. And it's denying her the ability to evolve the way she wants to, because he's holding her on a pedestal.
I agree with that.
And she's like, no, make me a fucking vampire. That's what I want. And he's ignoring her agency. And, if you're going to, bring her into this vampire world, like, of course people are going to be like, make me a fucking vampire. And yeah, he does the thing where he's like, I'm going to go away from you. That's what I'll do. But then, as Jacob says, he says it wasn't good enough. You should have gone longer. And Jacob's not wrong.
That's not wrong.
Because
I totally
then
agree
Edward
with that.
is just like, I'm going to kill myself. And like, it's like, well, God damn it, Edward. Like, and then we should get to the bottom of whether or not he's a ghost. Because that says a whole other world, right? Where it's like, he's like, I'm going to go away, but then keeps showing up as a ghost and telling you what to do.
He really does do that. I totally agree.
Yeah. And it's like, He's.
I, for the record, do not believe that was him. I believe that was her projections.
Yeah, I'm still Team Ghost.
But Team Ghost is such a huge leap that we don't have any reason to.
We'll see. We'll see if he fucking Obi-Wan's again into her life.
That would really dramatically change what I think about this character. Honestly, it really would. So, like, you made a great counterpoint. I still think that if you're going to be fair or nuanced at all in the way that you deal with the morality of Edward, he improves a lot in this movie. Like, he becomes a much better lover for her than he was.
We understand his complexity more.
Yes.
And that is part of it, is that from the beginning, I think, like, there's a difficulty with being him.
Yeah, what's he supposed to do?
As we discussed, who is he going to have relationships with? The answer is kind of nobody or another vampire.
Which he would have to create. He has to create that vampire.
Right, but if he truly thinks that what he is damned, then he's gonna just look around at other vampires, and if he doesn't like other vampires, most other vampires, then he's stuck in this weird situation, and it's fucked him up, and I get it. But it still doesn't change how unhealthy the relationship is.
Again, I don't think anybody can defend either of these relationships would be healthy.
Yeah, because I was gonna say Jacob. One of the points I had for him until the last movie was that he at least treats Bella like a human being.
Yes.
The one time, and I guess depending on your views of motorcycles, but like when she crashed on the motorcycle and he's like, no more motorcycles. And it's like, fucking calm down, Jacob. She can be on a motorcycle.
See, I didn't think that was that unreasonable given how bad that crash was. I was like, oh no, she should not be doing that.
Motorcycles they're a death sentence.
Yes.
I understand
for
this.
her in particular.
I'm just saying for her agency, it's just like he talked down to her like she was a kid. He was like, you don't get motorcycles. And it's like, I mean, you can say like, hey, I would really feel better if we don't do motorcycles because these are very dangerous. But he's on fucking motorcycles all the time. So it's like...
Yeah,
that's like him being like, you can't be shirtless. And it's like, fuck you, Jacob. You're shirtless all the goddamn time. Don't tell me to be shirtless. It's everybody like wanting Bella to be a certain way.
They all do, yes. They all fit in. She always fits into someone else's idea of what she's supposed to be. Like that's the movie thing.
Yeah, it constantly feels like that's why again it like feels like the resolution is her finally breaking out of it, because every fucking movie feels like Harry Potter when he's still under the staircase.
Yes, agreed.
It's like she's constantly trapped.
It's because
and
she's
I've
not
been
a wizard.
waiting for her to actually do something to break out of it.
That's why she has to be a wizard, Harry. That's literally why.
Yeah.
Because it's the only way that this story has an ending where she's a protagonist.
Yeah. She needs to become a vampire and then like break up with Edward, and then they do like 1,000 years later, and it's like
and she's Superman in that comic where he's been doing it for 1,000 years or whatever.
Oh, I was gonna say it's like 1,000 years later, and it's like the ending of like Chasing Amy, where they like see each other again. They're like, "Sup? We've moved on." You know, like it's like
or like La La Land, like the end of La La Land.
La La Land, yeah, where it's like it didn't work out, and like 1,000 years later, they're just like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Bun around. I eat humans now." And he's like, "Oh, okay."
La La Land is
okay. No judging.
Yeah, okay, not great, but La La Land is an interesting rebuke to Twilight. When you think, because they're both sort of equally stupid in some ways. Like, they're both like.
I found La La Land very dumb.
It's very naive. I didn't hate it, but it was very naive. It's clearly.
I like that. That's the director of Whiplash, and I had seen La La Land before Whiplash.
Oh,
so I hated that director. Oh, and then I watched Whiplash, and I was like, I take it all back. I love this.
Yeah,
person.
Whiplash is amazing.
So. Yeah, Whiplash is incredible. La La Land, the real problem with that movie, I thought, was that I could not give a ghost of a shit about their problems.
The real problem is that it was written by a person who hasn't failed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it was about like, oh, woe is me. I have to choose between a relationship or my amazing acting career. And it was like every step of the way they were so good at everything.
Yes,
and it was
that
like,
was a problem. It's like, you should have been 50 and had struggled for 15 years.
Yes,
then this would have been a better movie.
That movie would have been so much better if they were both like in their 50s.
Agreed. Same thing with Twilight. I would rather watch the Twilight where they're both middle-aged, trying to make another go at it. Like,
right? And I wouldn't have been creeped out. Like middle-aged, it's like your brain's done.
Yeah, Charlie's Twilight, right? What if they met a middle-aged vampire? What if Alice was a middle-aged vampire, and it was Charlie? Maybe Charlie's the Twilight we should have had.
Yeah, Twilight. Charlie should have been our Bella. Like, Charlie, I think, is the most compelling character of this whole series.
Oh, definitely.
He's my favorite character.
Definitely, no question.
And then of the vampires, I found Alice my favorite vampire.
I also like Alice.
Yeah. So, like, them, when they had that moment where they're walking out and she's, like, giggling and she's calling him Charlie and they're like, and he's like, I like her. I was just like, oh, fuck, yes. I was so into that.
Right.
It's not going to happen, is it? They're not going to. No. They're not going to get together.
No, because it creates a whole other set of problems.
What problems?
Well, she has to break up with Jasper, the murder vampire.
Right. Okay.
The CIA murder
would be
vampire.
Compelling.
Sure.
Like,
good
what
movie.
if you did a movie about where it's like the crazy ex-boyfriend is a vampire? But also, what would the neighbors think kind of situation? Because she does look young.
I do think that Alice would have been.
But that's yeah.
I think Alice.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I think Alice would have been a good protagonist for this series if. I think it's more interesting to watch a movie about not the popular girl. Because that's a more honest teenage undertaking.
Oh, 100%.
And for that person to be a vampire and like not be able to express the thing that makes her special, that's a more interesting.
Vampire.
Yeah, that's a more interesting story. The cracked version of this movie would have been we would have picked literally any of the friends at the table and made the story about them, and just in the background is all this fucking werewolf love story bullshit.
And like the obviousness of it, of like, it's the one friend who's like, does any of you else notice the obvious vampires?
Correct. They would be like, we would have made the guy from Scream, right? The fucking know-it-all kid from Scream's version of Twilight.
I constantly thought about, what are they called? The wilderness cameras that hunters set up?
Oh, yeah.
Like, they must catch some wild shit.
They must. Also,
they're just like, that's clearly a vampire running through the woods, climbing on the trees. They function like squirrels. They scuttle up trees and cling to them.
Yeah.
Just like squirrels.
I agree. Totally agree. It must be hilarious to watch. Like, can you imagine watching how funny it is to look at?
Oh yeah.
It's incredibly impressive. I have no doubt. There's a lot of movies in this universe that would be better than Twilight. Like there's just a lot. So like, I think Vampire Doctor, way more interesting movie. Like I'd way rather watch a few episodes of Vampire Doctor, right?
Yeah, he wants to drink their blood constantly, but he
can't do it.
Can't.
Yeah, it's basically it would play almost the same as Dexter. You know what I mean? That's I think that's what we'd be looking at. Is sort of a Dexter version of Vampire Doctor. That's an excellent movie. I think Rosalind, by the way, is a very interesting character with that backstory.
Oh my God! Yeah, the backstory, by the way, and it didn't make all the sense,
right?
Because it's very like 2-dimensional.
Yes,
but she's like some guy is courting her, and it seems like really romantic. And then she sees him on the streets, and he's drunk with his buddies in like a very public place,
in an alley that's not that removed. Correct.
Yeah, and he starts assaulting her, and she essentially gets raped on the streets.
That's what it looked like.
By her fiance or the guy courting her in like the olden times, and it's very upsetting. And because but it's like very also like they have to tell the story quick, so you're not quite sure what exactly is going on. And then I guess she was like beaten to death. Or nearly to death, and then the Cullen doctor found her and was like, well, I'll make you a vampire.
They didn't connect those
And then
dots.
she gets revenge on his whole fucking all the guys who assaulted her while dressed like a bride. And I was like, wow,
I kind of like that.
Hardcore.
I kind of liked the fact that she was a vampire bride.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Well, I mean, yeah, she went with a theme and she stuck with it. And she was like, she says, I might have been a little dramatic. And I'm like, I think you were right on the mark.
I think you made a little Kill Bill movie we're never going to get to see.
Yeah.
Is what happened.
I think you responded exactly how you should have.
Yeah. I mean, also the fucking smile on her face while she did it. I was like, Beatrix Kiddo, here. It sounded great. That's a great movie.
That's a movie.
Would love to watch it.
That's another movie.
Would love to watch it.
Done.
I also, believe it or not, I do think that there's a Die Hard to be made with Edward and Jacob where Bella's not there. Like
buddy.
Yeah, there's a buddy cop movie there. Like
I could also see again love triangle. That's obvious, but like if it weren't for this marriage thing, I would have assumed that Edward was very fluid sexually.
He could have been
because living for that long, you're gonna try some stuff.
Yeah, you'd try things out. I totally makes sense.
Yeah,
you've lived through the '60s. That must have been a confusing time even for vampires.
Like that's the thing. That's why it's weird to me that Jacob isn't more mature about this, because it is sort of feels like he's been living under a rock.
No, I don't think it's living under a rock.
Living this long, you know that relationships, like one of the things that happens and that I think isn't hormones. I think it's experience. I think it's years. Is that you learn that relationships aren't the end of the world. You learn that you're not going to freak out. You're not going to go to their house at 3 a.m. and scream at their window.
Correct.
You learn that this is not cool. That's not your body. That's just understanding people.
And you have a certain amount of you have to keep your hands off the thing because it's going to work or it's not.
Right, and you know that it makes you look bad to walk up to some guy and go, "What the fuck, man? That's my girl." It's none of that is cool, and it's weird. Edward doesn't know that.
I agree. He should know that, but again, it implies over and over. The implication is somewhat clear that he's been restraining from being involved sexually with anybody
because he's in a cult.
Kind of. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like because he just didn't have a pair, he's just been a fucking ghost virgin for this last 109 years. That's weird.
And the idea that maybe they're moving around so much that he doesn't get to know anybody but his weird cult family.
Well, the problem is he can't meet anybody because we're seeing what happens when he does. Mm-hmm. This is the story of what happens when he meets somebody.
Right, he fucks them to death. It would be amazing if they're when they get married, a haunting moment where Alice turns to Bella and whispers, "You're the sixth one." Yeah,
I thought the same thing. It was if she just gave a number. I totally agree.
Yeah.
By the way, what if there was
incredible?
What if there was an Alfie with Edward? We're just watching the movie Alfie, but with Edward.
What's Alfie?
Have you not seen Alfie with with Jude Law? It's this
I know of Alfie. I don't know anything about it. I know Jude Law as Alfie.
Yeah, he's just sleeping with a bunch of women, and then it's just all the consequences of his bad philandering.
Right.
It's been a long time since I watched it, but with a vampire Edward, it's I'm interested in the topic.
Like a movie just about that's called Vampire Bro Slut, and it's about Edward just sleeping around.
But you have to set it in the 40s or something where there's all these rules, and he's a Marquis de Sade type.
As long as you call it Vampire Bro Slut, then that's fine. I'm in.
I was going to propose that as the name of this podcast, but we're already balls deep in Guylight now. So what are you going to do? Yeah. we already got a blood boner's worth of Guylight now. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. We're packed with Guylight. I googled Guylight, by the way, at the 0 hour.
Thank you.
Because I was I wonder if that's anything.
Is it? Is it anything?
I don't think so. Oh, I think it's the term for when men highlight their hair.
Oh.
Little Guylights.
Right. Yeah, but wouldn't you be terrified if it was this is a common practice of sleeping with baby alligators or some shit?
Exactly.
You're oh.
That's why I googled it. Yeah. Which I was I hope this isn't anything.
Yeah. Smart. That's a smart decision. Okay, we need to talk about Team Jacob a little bit. We've had the Edward chat. Can we have a Team Jacob chat now?
Yeah.
What does it take to...
Not good points towards Jacob in this one.
What does it take to bring him back to being the better of the two, in your mind?
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I know you hate this, but Jacob is also an emotional, dumb teenager. And what appeals me to Jacob is that for some of this movie and for the previous one, he does kind of say, "All right, fuck off, Bella." He is kind of mature enough. I want to use mature enough to know this isn't good for me. Fuck you. This is I can't handle this. And it is very incel because she's I want to be your friend.
Incredibly incel.
Yeah, but it's very clear that this was maybe not clear, but at this point where she's kiss me, now it's okay, we need to clarify our relationship.
100%. I totally agree with that.
And he is kind of strung along, and I feel for him a little bit of that idea that he's just sort of heartstruck, and she kind of needs to just break it off.
Wow.
But again, she's also a teenager. And so that's, again, why I don't fault her, because I think this is a teenager thing.
I think
the idea is a guy's being too aggressive. He thinks he's coming from the right place, but he is aggressive, and it could get, it could be a red flag.
I have to jump in. I have to jump in. Wait. So first broad observation, which normally we don't do. But I think the reasons that you and I gravitate toward these two teams, other than because we have to for the podcast, is because you understand that teenage thing that Jacob is
I
experiencing.
understand the stupidity.
Yes.
I don't think he's...
Wait.
He doesn't seem predatory.
Disagree with that, but fair enough. So there's that. And I understand the tortured sort of desire/conviction problem that Edward has. So like,
here's why he doesn't seem predatory. I'm not saying he isn't dangerous. Predatory to me implies a certain amount of intelligence or knowledge that what they're doing, and I'm sure there's people screaming at me and saying like that's not what it means or it can mean other things. My definition for the purpose of this podcast is that Jacob's kind of just a blunt object. He doesn't really know what he's doing because he's a teenager and he has these weird werewolf aggression. And again, I'm team neither.
Yeah, me too.
But it's, again, the age thing. It's the fact that Edward's 109, so he should have more awareness of what's going on. And so, like, a teenage love triangle is one thing because it's a dumb hormonal mess. Versus a teenage love triangle where one of them has 100 years of experience. And they should know what to do.
Well, they might not have...
better than Edward.
They might not have
And
that,
so
though.
Jacob's not winning any points. But... I understand that he is not as in control as Edward is emotionally.
He seems to. I would make the point that Jacob seems to, once he became a werewolf, that's when these qualities started to exist. Before he became a werewolf, he was actually
he was still a creep.
He was a little bit of a creep, but he
lurched out of the woods.
Yeah, a little bit. But he was a lot more sort of like sardonic and funny and like. Like, you know, I would say that once he got the quote unquote werewolf body and started taking his shirt off, he was no longer like, he's not the same person. Like there was a definite transformation. Now
he's definitely wafting the vibes of the nice guy who buys into that nice guy crap,
who got lifted,
goes on, gets rejected by a girl, very, very clearly rejected. Goes on Reddit too much and becomes a weird incel.
Yes.
Like he is wafting those vibes, and that general vibe I do not like. Like in terms of the two people. Like I gotta say, I like Edward as a person more.
Way more.
Like I would hang out with Edward.
Not close to me. Not close. Which one's more likable as a person?
Yes, but in terms of who's more toxic in a relationship, Edward still feels way more toxic.
Okay, so I disagree. So let me make the counterpoints then. So the first is you have given him way too much of a pass for his intentions. Way too much. He is constantly manipulating this movie. Like he is constantly manipulating the movie. Every time he takes...
How is he manipulative?
I will explain. So one of the reasons is he chooses when he can take his shirt on and off. That does matter.
The source of his power is taking his shit off. I will agree with that.
And he's doing it on purpose. He's doing it on purpose to create the tension that he claims he is aware of because he can smell it on her every single time, which infuses the way you got to read the walking home where he carries her the whole time, the fact that he sneaks into the tent, the fact that he...
Yeah, that's a teenage boy thing, is that he wants her to like him.
No,
you're flaunt his goods.
No, dude. That's not what you do when you're clearly dating somebody else. Like, that's just not the way you do this.
Look. I don't think this alone, if you like someone, if you're into someone,
sure,
right?
Sure.
And they're dating someone else, and it's not serious. They don't have like a family and kids.
But it is serious.
Or maybe they do.
Sure.
Or maybe they do. Whatever. If you were like, I want to be with that person, I want them to leave the other person and be with me. The most healthy way of doing that is to be nice, charming, and attractive. Not be creepy, because Jacob is being creepy. I'm not saying that he isn't. I'm just defending the shirt thing.
Sure.
You would take off your shirt. You'd show them what you got. You'd be like, I want to tempt. I want to get them. I want to lure them over here.
Until they said no.
Maybe he's too hot. Like, I don't think we should shame him for not wearing
get out
a
of
shirt.
here. Get the fuck out of here with that. Yes, we should, because he knows...
He can wear what he wants. It's his body.
That's right. He can wear what he wants. I'm not saying he's not allowed to not wear a shirt. I'm just saying I'm allowed to interpret what his intentions are because of that decision, which I am. and I will. And I'm judging him as a suitor because of it. Is he allowed to do it? Sure. I'm not saying the government should come in and force a shirt on his body, but I am saying like that is megalomaniac fucking narcissistic behavior where he refuses to listen to anybody's opinion but his. Even when she says no, he doesn't listen. He's constantly trying to force every situation for her to admit that she likes him. He's forcing every fucking situation into that. Everyone.
Yeah, and I mean, personal feelings, if I was at a party and a guy kept taking off his shirt, I would not like that person.
Probably not. Yeah. Probably not. Unless he let you, like, what if he let you,
party.
What if he let you use his insane cum gutters to, like, pop off your beer top? How do you feel about that?
I mean, that would be pretty great.
That'd be amazing. He'd be your best friend.
I'd be like, oh, you're fucking great. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like a built-in Corona popper. I'm all into that, dude. So if you see him do that in movie 4, my whole opinion's going to change.
You don't think Edward's not doing that too with his fucking vampire mystique?
And perhaps he's really not, though, man. He's not laying it on that thick.
He negged the shit out of her. The first thing he did was be like, she smells.
Yeah, but I think we can accept.
I think Edward is 100% also. First of all, okay,
but wait.
Being in a high school,
you're rejecting.
Is weird.
No, dude,
Edward.
no, I can't have this. I can't have you go back to the same fucking stalwart point every time as the only way to interpret this. It's bullshit.
Do you think Edward doesn't know what he's doing, being the mysterious kid?
I don't think he has a
school?
fucking choice, and maybe he does know. I think he does say something like that in the first movie.
He's not there to learn. He's not there to learn. He knows all the shit already.
That's true. Well, Jacob's not there to help
either,
doing bro.
There?
He's not there to help. He's there to try to steal her. Like, that's his whole thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're doing whataboutism, by the way. You just tried to steer the conversation off. We're talking about fucking Jacob. You goddamn squirrel. Now, wait. So Jacob.
I'm not a squirrel.
Yeah, you are.
You're a squirrel.
You're so lovable, and I love seeing you scamp between ideas. You know, lighter than air, just leaping between ideas. All right, so look.
All right.
In addition to that, I think the fact that he forces a kiss on her is
not cool.
No, not just not cool. No. That's not just not cool because he doesn't say he's sorry. He calls it a misunderstanding, and it reinforces the behavior of forcing himself aggressively onto her in every situation, with the only change in behavior being like, I'll wait till you fucking ask me next time. So again, like maybe he's a teenager, but it doesn't matter.
He learns about consent. He learns about consent in that moment.
But he doesn't learn about consent because if he did, he wouldn't be doing all these things. He wouldn't be shoving himself like an unwanted dick into every little crevice he can. You know what
sure,
I mean? Like,
but again, I have to do whataboutism because compare that to Edward going in Bella's room and going through her stuff and watching her sleep.
I agree. That's creepy. I can't defend that.
It's also like a consent issue that he should know about at 109.
But she doesn't. He did it in the first movie. That part I agree with. But I think he has sort of.
He breaks her car in this one.
He has sort of. Yeah, he does do that. You're totally right. Yeah. Do you think he has carte blanche with that because of there's a vampire attacking, so he has to do stuff and make bad decisions?
I don't know. I think the thread on both of them is that I think Jacob's more physically predatory. He's more upsetting as a aggressive bro-ish presence,
right,
who will grab her and kiss her. Whereas Edward is slowly whittling her down emotionally.
I think there's a reading of him where that's not what he's doing, but I totally understand. I think it's a valid counterpoint that he could be doing that.
And also, I want to apologize to our listeners that every conversation we have is about who's the most abusive and toxic.
Why?
That's our teams. Our teams are which one of these two guys is not the worst.
I mean, but that's
a real shame.
This is what we've been given. What else can we do?
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, you act like we're forced to do this podcast, but yes.
I mean, the podcast doesn't even fucking exist.
I think that should always be the message of all of this, is that, like...
Nobody asked for this?
Just that this is part of the reason Twilight is seen as a bad film series.
That's fair.
Is that it's promoting a very unhealthy, dichotomy, like a very... gross, like, fantasy of how relationships go and what the decisions that this young woman needs to make between two guys who neither of them treat her well.
And it's a very immature set of choices. And by immature, I don't mean the guys. I think the guys are sort of toxic in a more mature way than we're giving them credit. I mean immature, like, the movie sort of still presents it in the romantic, like, it never gives any other alternative at all.
Right. It's the movie's fault. That's the thing. It's like, it's the difference between, like, a character in a movie that's supposed to be racist and a movie being racist. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Where it's like, yeah, it's the movie is problematic.
I totally agree.
It's not the characters. The movie presents this stuff as being like normal or romantic, where it's all very problematic, I think.
What if, okay, so let me pitch you, like, if we were going to fix it with what already happened in the movie, what if in the fourth and fifth movie the dad starts to get a lot more involved and, like, he asserts himself in this, like, okay, you're an adult and you can do what you want, but if you do these things, I have to ask you to leave my house and I can't see you again. Like,
I don't think,
you know what I mean? Like, what if he does, like, pulls a dad move?
well, I think the answer is, if that happens, I think the ultimate answer, if we talk about fixing it, we've already mentioned it, is Bella regaining some sort of control.
Right, so the dad can't be the solution.
Agency.
Yeah.
So, like, if the dad does that, she should be like, you know what? Fuck you.
Right.
Fuck you.
Right.
Fuck you. All of you. I'm peacing out.
It would help if the movie had supplied literally any other fact about her besides she's likable sexually.
I mean, I don't know anything about most of these characters. If you asked me what movies does Bella like, what food does she like?
What would she major in?
Is she funny?
Yeah.
What is she majoring in? Science?
Yeah, they said math. She said math,
like,
which is very surprising to hear that.
No, but in this one, she said Alaska had good science.
Oh, science.
Programs.
Yeah, it's very surprising to hear that because we've never seen her interested in it at all. It was like, okay.
Yes. That's not a thing. Although, if I were dating a vampire, I would also look into science.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But yes, she's a very underdeveloped character, and that's why it's these movies are, because we're talking about her purely in relationship form, because I guess that is what the movie is about. You can't fault the movie for that.
Sure you can. The
movie's about
yes, you can.
a romantic relationship.
Yes, you can. So look, you can fault the movie for that because, like, in, like, say a rom-com, right? A rom-com also fundamentally about a relationship, but at least the B-side of every rom-com plot is a career plot. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
or it's something that fleshes out the character. In this, it's always, we got these warring vampires. We got to do something, Bella.
Right.
You're the bait. They're always after you, Bella. We gotta help protect Bella. And then she just stands there like a mannequin,
while she watches other vampires get ripped apart like actual mannequins for reasons we don't understand.
All she does is watch these guys fight for her. It's a very immature view.
It's romance
of
novel.
Relationships.
It's romance novel. It just keeps coming back to that as a format. Like, the only thing missing is the sex scenes. And it would be a Harlequin romance novel essentially.
Oh, for sure.
Not that I think that doesn't deserve to exist or whatever. It's not that. It's just that, like, it's a bummer because it's made for kids. You know, like, I feel like if I was a parent raising a daughter, I wouldn't be thrilled that they were into this. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I might be disappointed, wouldn't you?
It depends on what they're getting out of it, I guess.
Right. So I guess that's true.
Because there's also, again, it's kind of all about agency. It's all about what a person likes and what a person wants in a relationship. And if you want someone who's a little more domineering, that's perfectly fine.
Yes.
You know, because, like, I get that. Personally, I don't like making decisions. So, like, I've always had relationships with people who are like, this is the movie we're watching. And it's like, thanks. Because it's just like, that solves problems. So I get it. I get if someone's reading this and this is like a particular fantasy of theirs, sure. But again, I think the problem with the movie is that it presents it way more normal. Which is why almost I think 50 Shades of Grey is a more honest version, because that's fan fiction.
It is definitely a more honest version.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Someone read Twilight and they're like, where's all the S&M fucking?
Yes, that's what it should be.
Because that's clearly supposed to be in here. Yeah.
Edward does feel like he should be a more well-to-do sort of cold wasp. Like that is what he's supposed to be, pretty clearly. So, I mean, I've only seen a bit of 50 Shades of Grey. I haven't watched a whole movie, but I've seen enough to think that the male character is very boring in it.
I've seen zero amount of it.
The male character is very Sebastian Grey, I think is his name. Insane.
Yeah.
Just very. He's domineering in a way that's like, what? To me,
it's all very. I remember I wrote an article that 50 Shades of Grey is the Woodstock 99 of sex, where it is to moshing what Woodstock. It is to sex what Woodstock 99 was to moshing.
Wow.
Which is that, like, I know it's a weird analogy, but there's like as someone who's been in a lot of punk pits and like hardcore pits and metal pits, when you go into like a mainstream band, like a Marilyn Manson mosh pit, it becomes clear these people don't know what they're doing, and they just know the concept of it, and it's very like milquetoast, but also surprisingly dangerous and toxic for that reason.
Right, because they haven't refined it to a safe, titillating practice.
They don't understand it.
Right.
And that's what I think 50 Shades, there was all these news stories about people getting in like handcuff accidents and stuff after 50 Shades came out, because all these couples were like, we'll try S&M. But it's like, like,
you gotta learn, maybe go to a class. Maybe take a class.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't just, like, they like fetishized a fetish.
Right. Of course.
And then everybody tried it, and I think a lot of couples were like, nope, not for us.
Yeah.
But it became like hot for a second.
Sure.
And it's like, this is sort of a subculture that shouldn't be like pretending to be a commercial mainstream product. You know, we don't need like Burger King put out a special 50 Shades of Grey limited cup series, you know? I don't know if they did that. They should have. Now that I say it out loud.
Can you imagine like just a leather belt with a Whopper? That's a Saturday.
Oh.
That is a fucking Saturday. Oh my God.
That is a Saturday.
Oh my God.
That's
Dave.
any day of the week, frankly.
Yeah, maybe, but especially a weekend. You put that belt on, maybe those feather cuffs on. Dave, right. it's been 2:20 and we have other things to do, if you can believe that. So like,
wait, what?
We have other pieces of this podcast we have not done yet.
What part?
Well,
I think we're far into. I don't know. We are in Guylight, right?
Oh, we're done with Guylight. We can move on into.
All right, let's talk about Twilight.
Twilight. Thank you. Briefly, how did you feel about the directing of the movie?
I thought it was better, but unmotivated.
Yes, that's a perfect summary. It's like this guy was a better craftsman, and it was shot better, it looked better, it was lit way better. But like, I didn't care about anything.
No, my theory is that this director knew what he was. He had done 30 Days of Night, I think, at this point already. He had done enough that he had some credibility, and he was going to go on to Black Mirror. And I think what he did with this is he's like, looked around and does anybody care what I'm doing right now? No? All right, I'm going to try some stuff. Where he's just like, I've always wanted to try this shot. Here's my chance.
He wasn't that creative with the way he shot this.
Yeah, that's also true. I think the vampire fights and the movements looked better.
Much better. Yes, they were better.
Yeah.
He also just picked better frames. And he wasn't as locked in to the color palette as the other ones have been.
For sure.
Like for instance, the purple flowers were exquisite, and they wouldn't have been in the other movies. But now that like
it felt less muted, the colors felt less muted.
Yes. Now that I've watched 3 of these, even though it was very flawed, I still prefer the way the first one was made to all the rest of these movies. Even though the first one would like made a lot of misses, I like the style of it more. It was more fun.
Well, it's a little more corny.
Yeah, which is what this is. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like, I would argue the opposite of the Harry Potters is like the moment Alfonso Cuarón showed up and was like, let's treat this like it's reality. I thought the Harry Potters got better. And then David Yates took over and so on and so forth. Yeah. Where they were just like, let's make this world look less like fantasy and make it look like these are people. Let's take them out of their robes. Let's put them in kids' clothes. All that stuff.
Yeah, he made it more of a drama. The
reason I think that worked with Harry Potter is because there was things at stake.
Yes.
The characters felt real.
Correct.
As opposed to this, which is it's basically a soap opera,
yes.
So it's like, why not treat it like one?
I agree. Like, honestly, I feel like Tarantino would make a good Twilight. I kid you not. I'm not kidding.
No, you're not wrong. I know what you're saying. Whereas he's over the top,
or like Oliver Stone,
campy,
or somebody like that. You know what I mean? Somebody like that who just like went
Oliver Stone's 5-hour Twilight. I'd be into it.
I mean, we'd watch it because somebody'd have to. It would have to be us.
Somebody would have to do it.
You know, it would have to be us. Anyway, I mean, I don't want to spend forever on the craft here. I just thought that this movie,
I think a cheesy, like Sam Raimi as well, a cheesy director
would do better with this. I totally agree.
Yes,
would do better. Although the performances were a lot more nuanced here. Like, I thought this is the best acting we've seen out of all three of the leads.
Yes.
By a wide margin. They were just better in this.
Yeah, this is one where I was like, I feel like, oh, okay. So I think they always were good actors, or at least two of them were. Taylor Lautner is yet to be seen.
Maybe
he'll
yet.
show up in some art house film as well. He's probably calling his agent, being like, why don't I get an art house film? What the hell?
He hasn't really emerged from this.
He was in like a couple movies. I think he just took the money and ran, though. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know his life.
I don't either. I've never even really seen him before I started watching this.
Right. But yeah, this was the first movie that I was like, yeah, they are actors.
Oh,
I can see it.
Yeah, yes, this was the one where it was Robert Pattinson in particular felt like he had a lot more to him here.
Yeah.
It was the first time I saw just a little bit of the lighthouse in him. Yeah, I mean, if you put a mustache on him, there was a couple of times where it was like, I could see some real storm a-brewing here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just like, yeah. By the way, I watched about 15 minutes of The White House after this morning, just to like,
nice.
just to remind myself. And I'm like, my God, that fucking mustache he's wearing really transforms his face.
It's golden. It's a golden mustache.
Oh, it's just a swooping promise. You know what I mean? It's just like,
it's beautiful.
Oh, it's magnificent. It cuts his face in half like a saw. It's great.
Imagine if Bella's dad was played by Willem Dafoe.
Thank you. I've been waiting to be asked to do that for this whole podcast.
Yeah.
Wonderful. The farting alone would improve the movies. You know, just the 10 to 15 extra farts every movie would really.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like teenagers can relate to that.
Sure, for farting, teenagers love farting.
They still think it's funny, and they're constantly doing it.
It's never not funny.
Yeah,
air is coming from your butt.
Right. But it also
what a funny thing to happen.
It's making a scream out of your body as it goes too.
Yeah,
you know, like a blast of hilarity.
Yeah, it's amazing. it's why would we ever do that?
It's magnificent.
Like it's fucking great.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Yeah. It really is great. It's like your body's a whole instrument waiting to be played.
You're shitting out a desert wind. It's incredible, and it makes a noise. And when the noise goes, everybody knows something came out of your butt.
Yeah, they know where it came from and
your
what
butt
it was.
Screamed.
Yeah.
Yep. Your butt made a little burp.
Yeah.
And then a bad smell, bad air.
It brought an
a
unwanted friend.
Cloud.
Yeah, it brought a blade to the party. I agree. Yeah, we all sort of we all play like it's a disgusting, surprising fact, but the truth of it is, we're all delighted, right? When somebody farts in public, like any kind of around anybody else, there's just a kind of delight at the audacity of it, right?
Yeah. No two farts are the same.
They're like snowflakes. Yeah, they're like snowflakes.
Yeah,
you know, just
it's incredible.
Yeah, different kinds of food that inspired it. You know, yeah. I don't know how we got into a detour with these farts, but that's right. Defoe is the dad. Yeah. So anyway, obviously we don't have quite enough magnificent in this film. Personal shopper wise, how do you feel about personal shopper Kristen Stewart in light of this performance?
again, I think both actors, they're evolving into better actors as these movies go on.
It's hard. She is a very different looking person with long hair.
Yeah. The problem is, the ultimate tragedy of Twilight is that these are great actors who are given the most boring characters.
I can see why they hated
Kristen
it.
Stewart,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think they have real talent in them. Like, this is the thing. Going back to Harry Potter, one of the things I always thought about them Harry Potters, and talent is talent. I think there's a certain level of... I think there's a lot that comes from talent, which is just experience and practice.
Of course. You can raise talent with those things.
Yes, and so I always think about the Harry Potters where it's like, how fucking lucky are those child actors to be on a set with Michael Gambon and fucking Maggie Smith.
Oh, Maggie Smith.
And Alan Rickman, and like get to do scenes with them, and it's like, holy fucking shit. This is how, if they don't come out of this good actors, I don't know what's going to do it. And then I saw Daniel Radcliffe, and Now You See Me Too, and I was like, he made it. But yeah, like this, and also like fucking amazing. Imagine being fucking directed by Alfonso Cuarón at that age.
I can barely imagine that.
Yeah, and it's like, holy shit. This is like boot camp for acting. This is coming from someone who knows nothing about acting, so maybe it doesn't work that way. But this movie seems like the Twilight seemed like a real bummer to start out, because I would say the one actress out of all of this who seems to be honing their craft actively during this is Anna Kendrick.
With the 3 scenes she's in every movie?
Yeah. She seems to be the only one who's like, I'm doing a thing, I'm doing a character, I'm going to make it work.
I think she was literally in Up in the Air at the same time as this movie.
I don't know.
It was either this year or the next year, I want to say, when Up in the Air came out. Like she was in Up in the Air, she was supporting actress, but it was a huge breakout for her.
Right.
So she's definitely working on stuff. Like I'm kind of bummed about the guy who caused the car accident, that he's not in these movies. Right? Like he just transferred out after the first movie.
Apparently, that character.
Yeah.
Well, all the high school kids, they're all just fodder. They're there to... They're the chorus. You know?
Sure.
They're just watching.
Sure.
And commenting and being like, those Cullens. No one is... They're clearly transitioning out. Again, the way Harry Potter transitions out of the school stuff slowly, where it's like, she's done with high school. She's graduated. They were always a second thought, these friends. They were never like her real friends. That's the... Okay. We got to wrap this up.
Do we?
Like,
Dave, do we? Dave.
Yeah, we technically do. I have obligations.
Dave, you know, your obligation is to the muse of entertainment, and
it's Friday night.
She's calling
and
you.
every Friday we're supposed to watch movies with our patrons.
The ones listening to this
15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you patrons are wondering, like, why was Dave late? This is why. This is the thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to talk about more in the next one. That makes Bella a very less sympathetic character.
I'm excited.
She is willing to throw away her entire life to be a vampire.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Is she's saying stuff like, I'm never going to see my dad again. I'm never going to see my mom again. I'm leaving. She is going to... Her plan is a month before her birthday, she gets married to Edward and then disappears.
And they never see her again.
Yep, and her dad is going to be haunted by that. He's going to think she's dead. He's going to think she was kidnapped or put in a cult. He's going to like become an alcoholic and become like, and like who knows what's going to happen.
That's true.
It's really dark.
Yeah,
what Bella's plan is. It is to abandon everybody she knows for one smooth ass cocksmith that rolled into her fucking school one day at 18. That's the thing. That's why it's so irresponsible. Is like that's the plan. That's the plan, right?
So again, like that's you connecting to the stakes of that decision, which I agree. Actually, I haven't really thought about what it would be like for her dad, because it would be awful for him. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure
because
the mom cares.
She's not going to fess up. The plan is, as far as we know, because they talk about it, is for her to abandon everybody. That's also why Jacob's so upset.
Right.
Again,
right.
it's if it was just some normal kid, then she'd be like, no big deal. But she's like, it's like she's joining the army.
No, I don't think that he would be like that. I disagree with what you think.
No,
he would be like.
I think he'd still be upset. But I'm saying what makes it even worse is the idea that she's going to abandon humanity, leave her life, like it's like joining a cult. And they haven't really gotten into that. They very casually talk about how she's going to kind of abandon everybody.
She seems very reluctant. That's one thing. She also seems very reluctant to ask sort of like, so what's it like as a vampire questions? Like, just like, what am I getting into?
You think that'd be the thing she'd ask.
Like, just so you know, like, it feels like somebody's knifing you in the genitals all the time just because that's part of it.
All they keep saying is like, no, seriously, you don't want to be a vampire. But they don't explain why. Right,
and she should be asking that question. That's like, you know.
What is it like?
It's like when you tour college campuses, you don't just walk around and be like, this is it. You know what I mean?
Right, and they say stuff. They drop hints. They're like, yeah, all the newbie vampires have insatiable bloodlust.
Right.
You'll know what I'm talking about soon, Bella. And it's like, what a casual thing to drop, that she's going to live a nightmare when she first becomes a vampire.
Right. And then there's the part where your toes get gnawed off by weird bugs that nobody can stop.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And don't get me started about how you see all your dead relatives all the time. Just staring at you in the darkness.
You keep seeing your conception every night when you sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you have a plan for when Satan shows up?
Yeah, because he's gonna
show up.
He's gonna have a suitcase and he's staying in your bed. What are you gonna do about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
fucked up.
That's a problem.
It's a lot of problems.
That is a big problem. They are really sidestepping that, and they can't, I don't think. But my question is, what are the last two movies about, in your opinion?
I think they're going to get married.
Yes.
I think it'll be the big wedding.
Yes.
I think I was told she's going to have a baby, which I'm kind of shocked about.
I am too. That has very disturbing
news. It doesn't
news.
seem like there's enough time
Agreed.
for that.
Agreed.
I think she's going to be preggo by the end of the next movie. It's going to be the next reveal. It's going to be like pregnant. And I think the wedding's going to happen, and I think there'll be conflict. I think it'll be a love triangle, and then a B-story conflict where vampires are going after Bella.
What if the baby
I'm done with predicting that something creative will happen.
I agree. What if the baby turns out to be some kind of Lion King? You know what I mean? Like some kind of like this. We've been waiting for this one. You know what I mean? Like Lord of the Vampires or something.
Right, maybe.
You know, I mean, I know that's, again, very patriarchal, but, like, at this point, is that really the wrong way to bet in this movie franchise? I doubt it.
I don't know, man. Well, our predictions, people are probably keeping track. Our predictions have been hit or miss.
Not that miss. We've been pretty good, I would argue.
Yeah. But I can see something like that where the Harry Potter vampires.
Yeah, this is a tough one because, like, I don't know why there needs to be more movies now. To me, it feels like we did it. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't seen her become a vampire, but, like, they could have added 10 minutes and that would have been enough. And, like, we wouldn't need to have more Twilights. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong, but, you know, I don't know why we needed one movie. You know, it's like you said, it's a romance novel. So it's just like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, like, and we're just going to see the whole goddamn
every step.
We're going to see the whole goddamn thing.
But in the internal workings of the movie, like, other than like finding out what makes her special, and her finally getting married / vampired, what the hell else is there to see here?
I think they're going to defeat the vampire lords.
I guess. Who cares?
And then I think they'll live... and then I think Jacob will pair off with somebody else. And I think they'll work out a friendship. And I think they'll live happily ever after with their stupid child.
This is starting to make me appreciate the end of Game of Thrones more. For being at least like some twists.
I don't know. What if Bella burns down a village? We don't know.
It's not impossible.
What if it ends with them killing Bella because she wrecks forks?
Ooh.
She turns Forks into the ruins, rubble.
What if she just fucks Forks? Can you even imagine?
Fucks Forks.
Yeah, can you even imagine? Whew.
Tom's texting me.
Because he's disappointed in us for going 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Hold on, let me text him.
No, we're fucking heroes, Dave. Like,
let me text him.
No, go ahead and text him. We're not cutting this. You don't get to cut this out.
Wrapping
not even a little bit.
up.
You don't get to.
Wrapping up.
Look, Dave.
You can start.
You have the fucking audacity to say, instead of letting me talk, just fucking say all the words of your text, you monster.
Like, apologies. Adam is a real
guy.
Jabber.
Why are you blaming me?
How do you spell jabber? Jabber mouth.
Okay, wait a minute. See what you just did is you fucking Jacob'd this. You just like manipulated the situation to be a thing that it wasn't. Because I defy you to take a word count here, dude.
I'm not going to count anything.
I'd love to see you do some math, Dave. That would really light my heart up.
It's my word against yours with Tom, and who's he going to believe? You or me?
He could believe his fucking ears when he listens to this episode. And
do you think we're at 2 hours and 40 minutes?
Do you think he's going to listen to this? No chance.
I don't know if anybody's going to listen.
Oh, they're going to hear us, Dave. Should we put a test? Do you want to put another test in here?
All right,
what do you want to do?
All right. Hashtag.
Hashtag claim that $5.
What is it?
Claim that $5. You're going to give $5. You're giving
claim that fiber.
$5. You're going to give $5 to somebody who listened to this.
I'm not giving $5 to nobody. I wanted to do something that's like hashtag the yellow farts. Something that like there's not going to be a lot of hashtags for.
Sure.
And
I mean, yellow farts is a pretty good first draft.
Okay. Everybody hashtag yellow farts if you've gotten this far in the almost 3 hour podcast about the third Twilight movie.
Also, yellow farts is an idea for our t-shirt shop. One of our producers should get on that.
We have producers?
Yeah, every episode we're acquiring producers, I presume. Right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Sure. I'd like to thank all the people who desired this podcast to exist.
Uh-huh. There are producers. Yeah. We'd like to thank them. Our super producers, all of you who are keeping us so on track. Talking about Twilight. So we've done it. Every episode is longer than the next.
This one is longer than 2 movies. I think. I don't know. It's pretty long.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no, they're not longer than 2 movies put together. Both the Twilights have been resting at a solid 2 hours and change.
Like 3 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
I also appreciate that. That's very respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not against them breaking up the next ones.
Me neither.
What is the next one called? Breaking Dawn?
Breaking Dawn.
Yeah. Is it going to be like Breaking Bad?
Oh, if only.
Dawn?
Fucking if only. If
they start selling meth.
One of those werewolves got lung cancer and had to make some choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some meth choices.
Yeah. Aaron Paul turns out to be head of the werewolf clan somehow.
Right. All right. Do we have any final thoughts? Is there anything we didn't tackle?
Dave,
here?
absolutely not. I can't fathom how we could have more thoughts.
We could keep going.
I know we could. But it's disrespectful, Dave. Let's learn from our.
You know what we're gonna have to do?
What?
For the next podcast? What? We'll have to break it up into 2 parts, like Breaking Down. And then the one after that, we'll also have to break up into 2 parts.
Can you imagine we get 5 more podcasts or something out of it?
Oh, man.
Holy shit. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, so far, this is a marathon for people listening. I don't know how people would find the time to listen to this.
I will say this. I listened to our first episode. I listened to it. If you sent it to me and I listened to it. I did find it. I didn't think it was indulgent. I did not think the first one was indulgent.
I think we're delightful. Yeah. I just think of like the idea of people if people are commuting to work, which a lot of you aren't. this would be a whole week's worth of podcast to listen
or
to. Just this episode.
Your work is a
Otherwise,
truck.
you have to sit in a dark room and just listen for 3 hours.
Yeah, your work is just a truck that you drive. So for our truck driving patrons, you're welcome for this.
Yeah.
I
just don't know what conditions about hashtag yellow farts.
Yeah.
Tell us how it got this bad for you.
Tell us what this did to you and where you ended up.
Tell us how you were able to get this far.
Yeah. What
you were doing?
What does
were
it
you
take?
cleaning the house?
Yeah. What does it take?
Were you stuck?
Yeah.
Were you stuck somewhere? Like, did you get buried alive like that Ryan Reynolds movie?
Can you imagine?
And you just were like, well, I can listen to a podcast. I got time to kill.
What if some patron was like, I'm going to have sex to the sounds of Adam and Dave Twilighting?
The more power to them.
And then they were like, we're not going to be done until it's over. Can you imagine that, Dave?
Oh, good on that.
Yeah, what a power sesh.
Yeah.
So if anybody did that,
that's a real power
send
sesh.
us a hashtag yellow farts and tell us about your sexual escapades.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Why not?
Literally, why not?
All bets are off, man.
We haven't had any bets this whole time. We've never had a bet on this podcast. They've been off the whole time. We're terrible.
Yes, we should be ashamed.
We're bad.
God.
We're bad at this. Yeah.
Thanks for being.
Oh yeah.
Being on this.
We're only
I don't know. Again, I shouldn't thank you because you're not my guest.
No.
But I do want to transition us into plugin stuff.
Sure, of course. And I will accept that transition as your co-host.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So you can find my other podcasts, which are probably about a quarter the length of these. I don't know. All of them on the Small Beans Network. You can find my podcast One-Upsmanship with my buddy Mike Swaim about video games. My podcast Director Piece Theater with my buddy Abe Epperson, and where we talk about the high art of low art movies as filmmakers. And then my podcast I'll Show You Mine If You Show Me Yours with my buddy Maggie Mae Smith, in which we get to know each other as friends through our various media that we love. All of that you can find in the Small Beans Network. You can get involved in producing the shows there at a Patreon tier very soon. And you can find me on Twitter at The Real Gans, also Instagram. You can find my website where I contain all the movies I have directed and plans for future movies that I will direct. So that's me.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll share my Twitter at movie hooligan if you want to check that out on our 7th hour of podcasting about Twilight. That's not an exaggeration.
This should be the point where you're convinced to finally check out his Twitter.
Yeah. And this network, Gamefully Unemployed. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We have exclusive podcasts there, like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. So check it out.
It's nothing. Check it out.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry, everyone.
I like the part where we just finish and start every podcast with yeah. We really did it. And there's 2 more. Can you believe that?
I don't want to hear that.
No, you want to hear it. You fucking want to hear it.
We're going to die doing this.
I know. And see, the funny thing
this is how we die.
And then remember how that time when you were like, what if we had another podcast that was just like a real thing that we did? And then you're looking at this and you're asking yourself, how could that ever happen? We would definitely be dead.
Right. We would just be going on for, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Probably. But I just want to lay down the challenge, Dave. I'm happy to end your life gently. I'm happy to be like the scorpion sting that takes you out finally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Someone has to. You know?
Yeah. By the way,
I need to be stopped.
I'm trolling the motherfuck out of your fans right now. On your Club 10,
good.
I just did it.
Are you texting them?
They were like, I hope Dave is out recording something important, and I wrote, it's nothing, I promise.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fuck you all.
Woo.
ho, ho.